No, we could be. I mean, that
We
is
could
something we
be.
could do. But I'm just telling you, I feel it would be more appropriate if we were manly men roaming around the forest looking for fights.
Ah, manly men, exactly. Men in tights. I remember
Exactly.
that. It's a
Yeah.
very, very chivalrous, story of a man that basically came back, that gave up his kingdom for a horse. It's one of those. It's one of those,
If it
good
weren't for
old
my
stories.
horse, it was like an old Louis it was Louis Black, not Louis
Yeah,
C.K. It was Louis Black sketch.
yeah, yeah.
You're like you hear someone else's part of a conversation, and then you're like, oh, I don't have the context. My brain is just going to keep working on what they said, and I don't get it. And then that's how you have aneurysms.
No, no, I'm with you, and of course, I'm still waiting for the new season of The Boys, but I haven't actually started watching the Generation V yet because that
I
seems.
haven't either.
I'm gonna give it a little bit of time. I want to because I want to catch it like a few episodes in. The streaming services are starting to do this whole one episode a week thing. It's like,
Well, they learned it from Disney Plus. They
no, no,
learned it
I
from
get
watching
it.
Disney Plus. It was
No, no,
like
I know, I know.
if we put out all the episodes at once, then you'll pay for a month and you'll binge everything, and then you
Yeah,
won't come back until the new show. But Disney Plus is like, well, we're gonna have a 6 episode run, so you need to at least pay for
yes.
2 months.
Or you could just basically wait till the show is over and just binge watch it. I
Yeah,
get it.
but then you
I'm
missed
with
out
you.
on all the conversations and what would all those like YouTubers do who
The
like,
Disney
oh,
conversation.
the ending of Andor explained, episode
Oh, let's
3
talk. No, like, okay,
explained,
so
Star Wars
not to make it
explained.
entirely over Disney. I
I,
mean,
I don't know
Ahsoka
about
ended
you, but the
yesterday.
last time I watched Star Wars, it was like, you know what I need? I need someone who's going to make a 45-minute video just telling me the cliff notes of what I just watched and spoon feeding me
Tell
lines
you
of
exactly what you
dialogue
missed. No, no,
and
I
then
like that. It's
telling
like
me
a
what the
yeah, yeah,
ending was. Because I watched the whole thing and I understood it, but
yeah.
obviously I need it explained to me. So
You need to nerd.
that's the
You
Hey
have to.
everybody, welcome to a tech podcast.
Welcome back.
Pew
Like two
pew.
old nerds start talking about tech, and then of course segue into a massively controversial conversation like Star Wars, because that's what we do.
Yes.
No, it's been an
I did
interesting.
just find copies of Project 4K 77 and Project 4K 80 and Project 4K 83 though.
Where are you?
So
Okay, did you just stumble onto some of that data, or were you just checking out your NAS or something? Like
I
what are we?
probably shouldn't say anything like on the stream, but if you search for those, they are amazing. I don't want to bandy that word about, but if
Okay,
you, because I wasn't the hugest Star Wars fan, but I have much love and reverence for the original trilogy. I think
right.
anyone our age is just sort of like that's your
Oh,
thing.
absolutely. It holds a
So
very emotional
these
connection to it. Yeah.
are sort of fan scanned from film prints. You'll see like the roller scratches, you'll see the degradation on how old the film is, but they're the original
Like the
trilogy
original
before
unmastered,
any
remodified,
yeah.
or pixel magic
And
eraser concept kind of going on here and filling everybody out.
they're like even the logo at the beginning isn't like the LucasArts CG wrought iron thing. It's just plain blue text LucasArts. Like it's
Sorry, yeah.
awesome.
I
Like
like
I get
minus
kind
all
of
the glory. Yeah, yeah.
I just get kind of worked up about it. It's like this is the movie that I remember from like old VHS or when it would broadcast on TV before all of the dumb CG editions had been slathered on all of them, and they're so pure. And you can see all of the glorious low budget problem solving in the filmmaking, and it's wondrous. And nothing is distracting you or nothing looks out of place. Like these are
Hmm.
the movies that won Academy Awards for special effects, and you can
Okay,
see why.
exactly.
And
Yeah, yeah.
it just again, if people go and maybe do a Bing search for Project 4K 77, you'll probably find some information on those
Well,
too.
wouldn't you
That
probably have better luck if you just asked Jeeves at that point? Because that would be more of a
I
relevant search
mean,
engine back then, if there
I'm just
was.
saying
Actually, there
it's
wasn't
not
even a
as deep
search
a
engine back
dive.
then.
We don't need to go hit like Alta Vista. All right,
Alta Vista was
you
the
don't have to go
bomb, though.
digging that deep.
Let's not start
That's what
talking
I'm
shit
saying.
about
Is
that.
like
Yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, Ask
yeah,
Jeeves
like
was cool. Alta Vista
sure.
was where it was at. Yeah,
Oh
I
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
We're gonna talk,
So
AOL search and all of that good stuff. Let's not start sending out CDs or floppies, right? If we're gonna go to the original, we'll just send out floppies, and you'll never
So,
be able to cancel.
JGJ, I've heard this so much, but the new sequels make people nostalgic for the prequels. Just because the new sequels were a dumpster fire showing a complete and total lack of executive leadership and no plan does not make the prequels good movies. Right? Just because the storytelling got worse doesn't mean that episodes 1, 2, and 3 were good.
By comparison, 3, 4, and 5 obviously were because we started at 3. That was the weird thing. No, we
We
started
started at 4,
4.
A New
Sorry,
Hope.
yeah, exactly. 1 through 3 was the prequels, and then the sequels. Okay. No,
Yeah.
I'm with you. I just it's the a lot of I think what he's talking about is like when you start watching when you because you started off with Disney, like literally the only thing I watch on Disney right now is Star Wars and Marvel, like with Loki and all of that stuff. That's literally the only reason I turned at that, and I
Yeah.
download some of those episodes. And then yesterday we had the last episode of Ahsoka. I keep calling it Ashoka, and that was reasonably well. I think the
Yeah.
storytelling and the fighting
I
scenes or everything was pretty good.
I feel with the exception of the Obi-Wan series, just tonally never
That was
found its
yeah,
footing.
that was a weird
Because there were
like
great moments
yeah,
in Obi-Wan, and then there were
very
just really
little.
weird little kid slapsticky moments. But I feel
Exactly. Yeah.
on the whole, the Disney television shows have actually been exploring the galaxy, not just what happens to the Skywalkers again. Really expanding this expanded universe, and I feel they've been a bit more consistent with their episodic storytelling. Again, we don't need. We've got so much to
We're
talk
not.
about.
I was gonna say
We don't
let's
need
not
to
turn it into a Disney
relitigate Star
episode.
Wars.
I forgot to add that into the title, so let's just go ahead and deep
Right,
dive into the biggest
for
event
sure.
ever. We missed last week's episode because we were having fun in New York. That was it. I'm
That's
gonna
right.
say that we were getting some pizzas. I'm sorry.
That's right. The only reason why we were in New York
It was for
was to
pizzas.
was to go downtown and to get.
Yeah,
I mean, technically, we did end up with dollar slices of pizza because it was 2 slices of cheese and a bottle of water
that's
for
true.
$2.99. So I know a lot of people keep saying like, "Oh, inflation is hitting, and your dollar slice of pizza is $1.25 now." No, no, we did
The combo was
dollar
legit.
slices of pizza.
It hit
It
the
was
spot
so good.
right, and it was a good. I would probably say like a good hunt because we walked for like 7 miles, 6, 7 miles. Like I think by the time we came back, we clocked in really well. We
We
had
clocked almost 18,000 steps in one
yeah,
night.
it was a
Yeah,
good night, and we
it
had the
was a good
pizza
hike.
somewhat in the middle, so it was a good
Brian
experience.
Glaze, did you guys bring pizza back for me? It vanished
I
quickly.
I'm gonna say
I inhaled
yeah.
it and I wished I had savored it, but even if we had tried, I would have eaten it before I got it back to you, Brian. I do
I
apologize for
I
that.
was gonna say with the amount of layover we had at the airport that morning, I would have basically eaten it in that breakfast, as opposed to what I
Oh,
had. Not that I'm trying to remember. What
oh
did I have?
man,
Oh, I had a bagel. That's what it was.
cold New York pizza for breakfast. So
It's
we're
the
at the
best thing ever.
airport.
Yeah,
We're leaving because we were only there for a whole day. We're leaving.
yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of eggs, and I really don't like them when they're kind of prepared in like airport microwaves. Like
Hmm.
they're just rubbery and they're not very appealing to me. But I want something other than just bread and cream cheese.
Which is, by the way, what I had. But yes, sorry.
No,
Go
no, no.
ahead.
I mean, I'm not putting this on anyone else. I'm just saying for
I
myself,
see
it
what you're
is
doing. No,
difficult.
it's a personal thing against me now. But please go ahead.
I hope your feelings were hurt. It was an attack on your character. So
Yeah,
I'm looking around and there's this one quirky little sub shop like buried down an alley
it is.
in the
Off the.
Newark airport.
You'd miss it if
Like,
you didn't look. Yeah, no, exactly.
yeah, I mean, like I had to go hiking there, and there's this like sad little sandwich maker just sitting there because no one's ordering
'Cause
sandwiches,
nobody's
so I
ordering from.
ordered
Yeah, exactly.
like an
There was no
Italian
line.
deli sub at like 7 in the morning, and it was just so happy. It's like, oh, it's not egg.
Oh, crap.
I can eat
Well,
this. So I'm so
so
happy.
just so you know, my side when I was getting the egg and cheese bagel thing that I got, the eggs are freshly cracked and fried on the griddle. So it wasn't microwave; it was freshly cooked. It's just
Well, that's good.
obviously the bagel has been God knows how old it is, but
Yeah.
it was dude. It was breakfast at 6 a.m. while it was pouring rain in New York, and floodings were happening and all of that. We were escaping
Yeah,
all of that.
we escaped by the skin of our teeth.
That was luck, man. Like if we had just a later flight, like I think our buddy Adam got stuck. We had
A
to,
few people
yeah.
got delayed. I was happy that it didn't seem like it got so bad that flights were like outright canceled. But
Yeah.
It's
But I
always
also think he
like,
was flying out of JFK. He wasn't flying out of Newark. So
oh
we were
yeah,
already
yeah,
looking at. He
yeah.
was in that. Yeah, obviously
Fair.
middle of it exactly. Newark
But
further inland a little bit.
but it is the sort of like the consideration we all need to build into our event show coverage and travel. I mean, not that we were there for any professional reasons. We were only there to get slices of pizza.
Slices of pizza.
But um, now I'm actually thinking like, oh, if I go to cover this show, I need to also have like a contingency plan if climate change wrecks
Well,
my
I mean,
ability to fly home.
if I'm not mistaken, I think the guys over at Vid Summit in Texas are getting drenched right now as well. The actual convention center is
Yeah.
like it's raining pretty bad. Like
We
it's a
had
weird weather system.
Ted Talks Tech was apparently working the show, and he got to meet up with Trent and
Was
Trent,
this- Oh,
Viper,
well,
and
Jefe.
El Jefe Reviews.
I was gonna
Yeah,
say, yeah, Jeff is in there. Exactly. No,
yeah.
so
He posted a picture of like all the group, and it was like, oh, that makes me so happy. That was
it
such a
is.
happy photo.
No, absolutely. But I mean, since we were talking about New York, obviously the biggest
For
thing that
sure.
happened in the last couple of weeks, Google finally unveiled the long rumored,
Leaked.
highly leaked, uh, detailed video in ahead of. Well, I mean, yeah, we saw all of the information. There was a few things, obviously, that we didn't get a chance that were not confirmed, which I was hoping were going to get confirmed.
Oh,
But yes,
I've got the Pixel 8 up on the screen. Did you want to start with the Pixel 8? Do we want to
let's
just
talk about
knock
the
out
Pixel 8.
Pixel
Yeah,
Watch?
why not start at the 8 and then go to the 8 Pro? Because I feel like
Okay, we'll stick with the
there,
phones. All right.
there's there's a much bigger difference this year between the 8 and the 8 Pro. Like Google's purposely making a delineation between what a Pro is and what a standard version of their 8 model is. To top it off, obviously the
Mhm.
display dropped about an inch, so it's not an inch, but from 6.3 to
Oh,
6.2 inch, if I'm
you know
not
what I can
mistaken.
do? I'm gonna pull up Phone Arena because I
Their
love this
comparison.
direction that Google is heading. You keep talking about specs and stuff. I'll
No,
be
no.
right back.
So they released basically, the 8 and the 8 Pro, a couple of new colors for the Buds Pro, their Buds Pro earbuds, and then of course there's the Pixel Watch 2, which was the highly anticipated second version of the watch, with a few things we'll talk about when we get to the watch. But the short answer, starting off with the Pixel 8, it's the base entry, right? It's not the A series. This is still powered by the same tensor, the G3, the newly announced Tensor G3 processor, that is going to be powering a lot of the heavy lifting and AI on-device AI algorithms and machine learning that Google wants to run. But seems like not all of it will run on the 8, which is why I was saying there's a much bigger
Yeah.
difference. Google is
So
very focused this year on separating the
it
standard to
seems
pro.
to me
Hmm.
that so iPhone land. Let's use
Yes.
this as like the analogous company making their own phone in a vertical of their own chip and their own operating system. You've
Yeah,
got the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 15 Plus, and you have the iPhone 15 Pro and the iPhone 15 Pro Max. It
exactly.
seems to me like Google is saying we've got a Google 8, which is analogous to an iPhone 15, and then
Okay.
we have a Pixel 8 Pro, which is analogous to an iPhone 15 Pro Max, somewhere in there,
Yeah,
kind of
because
in
they're
between.
exactly, they're not
And
doing the
so
same
they're not
quad,
doing
they're
a
doing
little
duo.
Pro, and they're
Yeah.
not doing a Plus standard.
I I'm gonna say I mean, they do kind of, right? They do it, but a different way. Like they did the 7A about a couple of months before the 8. So technically the
Right.
7A is
But
not a
but but the 7A and the A series are the phones that absolutely shame and embarrass the iPhone SEs. Because
yes,
like you get an
absolutely. Well, the SE,
iPhone SE with like 128 gig of storage, and you're like, this is the dumbest phone to still sell in the modern
it
age.
I think the SE story is an interesting approach to why
We don't
it's
need.
very
We've got
nostalgic.
so
But
much Google to
no,
cover.
no, absolutely. We're gonna cover. So what I was trying to lead towards though is like within the last couple of years, at least Google's repertoire has been very consistent in an A series version of their devices, single
Sure.
version, not dual version, which they used to do. And then we'll have a base and a pro model. But what they've changed this year is that I'm not going to say gatekeep, but they basically kept certain features that are considered to be pro on the Pixel Pro that are
Yeah.
not going to be on the Pixel 8, which was a very different approach. They typically, I feel like they always like, it's kind of like the 5 and the 1 series
Well,
with
but I mean,
Sony, right?
like
Big
Pixel
little
7, Pixel 7 loses the camera sensor, had the 90 hertz. Was the Pixel 7 120 or was it 90
90.
hertz?
No, 90. Right.
So again, I feel like there's always been a separation or kind of
There's no, there's
a
been,
bit of a
but
crowbar,
software
but
feature wise though, I don't think they've ever separated the saying that the new Magic Eraser, improved Magic Eraser only works on the 8 Pro, or that the new, system with Bard would be
yeah,
releasing. And
that's
I don't
fair.
think they keep that, but like the Pro mode in the camera app only exists on the 8 Pro, does not exist on the 8. Typically, it's been always a mirrored software experience. It's the capabilities of the hardware that differentiated them. We still have that. It just this year, for some reason, I guess they felt like this is what makes a pro. And of course, with the slight bump in price on both, I think the 8 and the 8 Pro, starting at $100 more.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, I think 799 and nine
Well,
ninety nine were the starting
six
prices.
six ninety nine for the Pixel 8 and nine
Oh,
ninety nine for the Pixel 8 Pro.
yeah, yeah. I'm sorry, 699. Yeah, that was it
So
was 599
so
to
this
699,
actually gave Samsung a bit of an opportunity this year where their FEs weren't
which came out
weren't
of the
directly
that
in the
came out of left field.
crossfires.
Also, like
Yeah. Like,
I thought
hey,
FE
we're
was only going to
Samsung. We can't
India,
let Google have too much fun. We just want to
but
steal some of their thunder. Bye.
But like no, but seriously, like so Samsung legit has 5 tablets that they released in this year. There's the 2 FEs and this 3S series. So there's 5 tablets in all. And then you have the FE, the S21, S23 FE, and then there it is. Okay, I saw the fly. Or I think the bug. I have a mosquito in my office. So if you see me grabbing things in the future, please do not panic. It is me
No,
trying to
it's
save
it's
my
just
life.
TK having a stroke, and we'll all sort of laugh at
Or
his
seeing
expense.
things. Yeah. If you start going dizzy, like falling off. Um
Oh, old man TK hallucinating again, tilting at windmills.
Oh my god! And then we have the edit photos just like that. Yeah, that part. I mean, it works. It works. I've seen some of our friends demo it. I mean, Edabong demoed it. I think I forgot maybe Ben Singh also had it in there. So there's a lot of new things coming in. I think some of the features you're looking at are actually on Pixel 8 Pro
No, this
specifically.
is the
That
Pixel 8 page.
Oh, it is on the page, but I'm saying is some of the information, like the advanced version of
Sure.
Magic Eraser is on a Pro, and then you also have that was the I forgot the name of that feature. What did they call that?
The
It was
Magic Editor.
it's yeah, where you're able to basically move a subject and then use
Yeah.
AI to backfill the actual missing content.
So that's that. According to Google, that's also going to be Pixel 8. So
Well, we'll
like the
see.
audio stuff and the video stuff, I think it's going to be more kind of like how an iPhone Pro has expanded video capabilities. That's where I think we're going to see video boost and things like that. But we're still
Yeah,
on
yeah.
the Pixel 8, so we'll get to the Pixel 8 Pro
I'm with you. I'm with
in
you.
just a bit.
But again, same thing. Dual camera sensors on the back. And we obviously lose one sensor since that's going to be kept to the Pro. And a compelling and approach to what the base model is going to be. It's a little bit more expensive, slightly smaller, uh, but definitely more powerful since we're going with the Tensor G3. And unfortunately, there's no videos on it, no reviews, anything like that yet. I think that's probably not going to happen until next week, as I think most people probably got their devices just as the announcements were being done. If Google
Yeah.
follows normal.
Again, this has been a terrifically leaked product.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
We've had a pretty good handle on the hardware specs. Some disappointing things in there. I know a lot of us were really hoping that we'd see Google step up to a larger main camera sensor, maybe for the
Mhm.
Pro, going with that GN2,
Yeah,
which is a phenomenal camera sensor. Sounds now like it is much closer to what Vivo was using. So
okay.
the GNV
Mhm.
sensor is like a cousin of what's now in the Pixel 8 and the Pixel 8 Pro. I just have this up here. This is the Phone Arena size comparison, and I'm just happy to have a good normal sized phone again
It's still
from
over 6.
Google.
Yeah, yeah.
As kind of, again, this isn't that we're right on the border.
Yeah.
This is kind of where I draw my line between mid-rangers and premium tiers, somewhere between $600 and $700. So
Yeah.
at $699, this is not a cheap phone, but
Mm-mm.
it's not a class-leading premium tier phone. So this is fighting in that space where like iQOO and OnePlus really carved out some interesting
Well,
territory this year.
it's more expensive than the OnePlus actually, because the OnePlus, if I'm not mistaken, is 650.
Well, that's what I mean though, is
Yeah, yeah.
in
It's
that
plain. It's plain in that. It's plain in
ballpark.
that territory. Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely. And spec for spec with the processing power and
yeah.
the 11 is a compelling device when you start comparing it straight. But again, the 10, and I think somebody, I forgot who said it on saw it on tweet on X or Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
Google doesn't build their processors or doesn't build the experience around how many gigaflops you're able to do on the device. It's basically how well does it do its processing, how well does it operate and run their services on a
Mm-hmm.
device. And I think that's the biggest thing for them. They're focusing on that part of the experience,
Sure.
and minus the heat on the Tensor G2, because we don't really know yet on the J and the G3, or the
But
the warm.
I'm just going to push pause on you because we keep changing the subject.
Sure.
I'm on the Phone Arena size comparison website
I see the
so that we
Zenfone
can
10. I
see.
see the
Yes, you can
S23.
see, but we have not actually discussed that a Pixel 8, not an
There's a lot of
8A,
emotional stuff
but
that
a
I want to put
Pixel
out, but
8
yeah.
is
Yeah.
almost the same size as a Zenfone 10 or a Galaxy S23. So to finish the thought, so we can get rid of this webpage and then go talk about all
That
the
is
other specs
that
and
is quite
tensors and
small,
things like
actually.
that,
Yeah.
I am so happy because my dad is currently on a Pixel 4a. And one of the main reasons he's still on that phone is he doesn't want to go to a bigger phone. I feel I have a path now where we can maybe nudge him into something a little bit bigger. But
Hmm.
like if I pull this up, like here, let me get rid of the Samsung because who cares about that?
Cool.
Pixel 4a,
I think the 4A
and
was
we
the
add
right
that.
size. Yeah. It's
So the
about
4A is just a tiny hair smaller than the Zenfone 10, and the Zenfone 10 is only a tiny hair smaller than the Pixel 8. So it won't be the radical size difference for folks who were on some of the older classic Pixels, Pixel 5,
hmm
Pixel 4a, even some, like I still see the occasional Pixel 3a out in the wild.
Oh,
Those
my
phones were
my
surprisingly
my
long-lived.
mother-in-law still uses the Pixel 3a,
Yeah.
and my father-in-law uses the 3a XL. That's again what they used to have back in the 279,
Mm-hmm.
379 price point.
So
Dirt
here's
cheap
what you
stuff.
got to do is you
Yeah.
got to get like your Galaxy S23 Ultras or your like Red Magic Pros.
Uh-huh.
And then when you've got someone who's stuck on like one of those Pixel 4As and I just don't want to go with the bigger phone, what you do is you go up to them and say, "Well, this is what most phones are like today." And then you give them a ludicrously heavy phone like a Red Magic. And you
Or
just
an ROG
say, "But
Phone
that's
5.
kind of like what
Yeah.
average is now." You know, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but Google does have this Pixel 8. You could maybe try that instead. So you've got to prime them for the comparison at the high end so that they're not just sitting there on their Pixel 4As going, "Oh, but this Pixel 8 is going to be 0.03 inches thicker. Oh,
Yeah.
I can't do that because I don't want to go any bigger for my phone." And
Spoken like a
then
true salesman, my friend. Size it.
you've
You build them
primed
up.
them correctly for an
Exactly.
upgrade
No, I'm with
from
you.
their
I'm with you.
from their ancient Pixel 4a.
I
Get
think
them into something current.
I think the fact that we have a smaller size version of their device is definitely nice. It's just the question though is from somebody that let's say it's coming in from a Pixel 6 or a 7, if they decide to upgrade it, they're going to noticeably slightly smaller phone. They may want to go to the bigger size
Oh
at
yeah.
that point, because again, I was about to just say
You
size
know, I,
matters, but that is just a
I
different
but
conversation.
coming from people that were like handling Pixel 7s and stuff, like
Hmm.
if you weren't already inclined to be one of the people on the Pro model with all the extra bells and whistles, I hear more people kind of lamenting, yeah, this Pixel 7's nice, but I wish it were a little bit smaller.
Oh,
And
okay,
that
yeah.
has been a general trend where we know these are not the devices that sell the most. We know they're not. We know that out of all the Galaxy S23s, the Ultra was the one that was showing exciting growth and people were moving up the food chain if
Hmm.
they were buying premium Android, just as like with iPhones. It's people are moving up the food chain and you don't have iPhone minis anymore. Like that product segment died.
Yeah, it died with
But
the 12, or no,
but
no,
for
with the 13.
people who were on the middle Pixel, the Pixel 7, not the 7a, not the 7 Pro, a lot of them I feel would be interested in moving to a comparable experience, but shaving some size, shaving some weight, and hopefully getting some of those improvements that we've been seeing from this announcement.
No, no, and honestly, the experience is definitely going to be really, really sweetened by the inclusion of 7 years of software update of OS updates to said Pixel 8. Even
Yeah,
the
I
8
was
and the
glad
8
that
Pro
we
both.
we had that wrong.
Yeah, no, I don't think anybody
Isn't
keeps
it?
their phone that long, but I mean, I'm glad that Google's committing to 7 years of. I thought it was going to be 7 years of security patch updates and like five
That's what I
years of
was
OS
thinking.
updates, and I think
We
that's
said it on
typical.
this show. You
Yeah,
all can fact check us, but we
and
went on the record and we said, hey, I don't think you need to get your hopes up for like
7
seven
years,
operating system updates. I
seven
just want to
years,
put that into perspective.
and it releases with
So
14. That means we're talking about 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, all the way to 21. Blackjack. That's what we're doing.
so so we've got I don't think anyone would imagine that over
Sure.
the next 7 years, our phones will evolve as radically as they did the last 7 years. So the next 7 years, I feel our iterations and our improvements are probably going to be a little bit finer from year to year
More
than
software. I
when you
feel
go
like it's going
back.
to be more software based. Yeah,
So
you're right.
so I feel like it's not as much of a stretch as it used to be to think like, oh, well, what's going to change in an operating system and can we predict whether or not these devices will handle it?
Hmm.
I have now been going back and playing with old mid-rangers and old premium tier phones, and if we could get just a little bit of attention from the manufacturer to polish and optimize the experience, there's very little holding you back if you wanted to go to like a Snapdragon 625. You should actually be able to update that and run it with something more current if you could just kind of keep
Oh,
up with the RAM and the storage and the
what
battery and
what
everything.
that used to be the bread and butter. What custom ROMs used to do. That was the whole purpose of them. Is
Yeah.
companies drop the support, and then somebody, devoted fans start basically picking it up and start trying to get something to work on it. I
So
absolutely, and the
we
hardware is
have
not dead.
to
Yeah,
we have to assume that Google's designs on what is going to change year to year on their operating system is not going to be as dramatic
exactly.
as it
And I
has
think
been in years
it's a
past.
little bit of a
Because
sneak peek into
otherwise,
their roadmap. Exactly.
if you look back, I mean, the kind of change that they're saying they're going to deliver in support now with 7 operating systems would be like going to a Pixel 1
Hmm.
and trying to shove Android 13 on a Pixel 1.
On the original Nexus,
Seven
or no,
seven
Pixel.
years
Yeah, exactly. Not the original
of
Pixel.
software over that period of time. So
Yeah, I know.
I'm encouraged, but I also
Yeah.
feel like we need to keep those expectations in check for all the people that like to go out there and trumpet like, oh, but tech has gotten so boring. Um, well, yeah, now we're entering a mature smartphone market, and we need to see that iteration, polish, and user experience refined.
Hmm.
And I don't feel we're going to be reinventing the wheel.
No,
If Google can say with reasonable certainty, like, we will actually be supporting this device for 7 years, we're not expecting 7 years of radical departure updates like from Android 9 to Android 11. We're talking about more modest
no,
feature
exactly.
improvements and
As we've
services
seen,
improvements.
as we've seen 12 to 13, and then 13 to 14. It's speaking of which I still haven't gotten Android 14 on my Pixel 7 Pro for some reason.
Me neither.
My son's
Not
4A
mine.
got it. Yeah, my son's
So
4A got it. My
the
7
the
Pro,
the
no,
the
no, no.
6A has it. My Pixel Fold is on the beta. My Pixel tablet got it, and I'm actually updating my Pixel 6 Pro right now because I think I'm 2 updates behind. So it's still cycling that. But my
I am
Pixel
on
7
the
Pro
latest
has
software.
not
Yeah,
been playing ball.
September 1st. I don't know. So I tried going to the flash yourself, not flash yourself. Oh, for the love of God. Flash
It's dirty.
it to your device. It just sounds wrong when I say
You're
these
such a
things.
creeper. Yeah, you make it
Yeah,
sound weird.
Thursday.
Oh,
Yeah.
and finally, my Pixel Fold is getting the QPR 2. So
Yeah, okay.
the next
The latest
beta
beta.
update.
Yeah, yeah. Actually, you know what? I may just jump on the beta. I may just sign myself for the beta because this is just I don't know. But it's been that way ever since I've had the 7 Pro. I'm always one of the last people to get the updates, like even the security patch
Hmm.
updates. Like whenever there's a feature drop and you're like, we got to try something. Nope, that just does not download. But no, no. So to go back to the Pixel 8, I think so. For that extra $100, when we start talking about what are you getting with that, we need to start and
Sure.
also explaining that the features, it is going to be a very much a software game. I mean, feature drop, they were promising new features to be added as part of these things, and that it will be improving. And trust me when I say that, and this is just even from personal experience, we've used Pixels for many years. We see feature drops that bring new experiences, new capabilities to our devices, and obviously some of it leveraging cloud services, some of it on device, and so on. But like these updates are exciting. This is something that you
Hmm.
typically don't get with most manufacturers that are not using, let's say, that are not a Pixel. Samsung more than likely will update your software, will give you some, maybe security patch update. But even when they jump you from one OS to the next, they typically don't give you new features. It's typically the
Hmm.
same, just updated software
Yeah.
based on the requirement or whatever the agreement was. Google tries to still put out features. They were talking
Yeah.
about the fact that some of the things they announced at the event, I think a couple of days ago, are going to be coming in as part of the December feature drop. So we already know when the features are coming, and that could potentially number of devices, even older devices, may get some of these features. We don't know, obviously, till it's released. So again, I think for an extra $100, getting the additional years of service and features and the ability of getting the care on the device, so you don't have to worry about security updates, is definitely worth it if you're thinking of keeping this for the long haul. Obviously,
Hmm.
if the storage doesn't become an issue to you at some point, and a whole bunch of other things that may cause you to upgrade, but if you do upgrade, that device will still get that support, which may even help in the resale market
Yeah.
because it.
Well, and
Yeah.
and I know a lot of people are saying, "Well, who's going to keep their phone for 7 years?" I need people to remember that the average is somewhere between 28 and 30 months, depending on what
Hmm.
analyst you're talking to. So the average length of time of ownership is just shy of,
Almost 3 years.
let's just say it's like 2.5 years.
Yeah,
All
almost
right,
30,
let's
almost 36, but yeah, like 30 months.
so at 30 months, it's about 2.5 years.
Yep.
So
We're doing math.
as many
Sheesh.
people
Yeah, yeah.
keep their phones longer as people like us who are flipping our phones more frequently.
Well,
And
yeah,
I
we are not. I should never. Yeah, we should never be compared as to that extreme. But I'll say like I said, my in-laws are using the 3A, and unless the phone cracks and dies,
right.
they're they're happy.
But the point I'm getting at is I believe a
Hmm.
number of those people that are at the longer end, sort of the long tail end of the smartphone ownership equation would likely hold on to their phones even longer
Hmm.
if there were good commitments in place for things like battery replacements once you start getting to around 4 years out.
That's true.
And that's actually one of the exciting things. There's just, I think it was Android Central, or I think it was Android Central,
Hmm.
just published an article saying that not only is Google committing to 7 years of software support, they're committing to 7 years of parts in the repair
Through
ecosystem.
through
So
through iFixit.
they've already announced their relationship with iFixit, but
I've
they are
tested that.
committing
I've had
to
the.
repair and replacement parts
Yeah.
being available for that 7 year window
Well,
as well.
but
So
making it
anyone,
easier to actually do it. That's the other thing. It's the accessibility,
right.
not just availability. But yeah.
Yes, but with no accessibility or availability, it doesn't matter how hard the phone is to replace. If it's 5 years old and you can't get a battery for it, then you just buy a new phone. But that's what I mean is when we talk about not just the software support, but we talk about a commitment to parts in the ecosystem, that's what Panasonic does with their corporate hardware. Is they're signing these
That's right. Yeah, yeah, that's right.
agreements
Yeah, exactly.
with manufacturers and with warehouses and with governments, and so they have to have a 10-year portfolio of hardware so that even if someone's like on a Panasonic from 9 years ago, if they need to buy replacement batteries or new security card implementation or any of the plug-in sockets that you'd see on a Toughbook, they have to reasonably expect they can get all of those parts and that they're going to be interoperable. And so that to me is actually one of the bigger announcements that's been sort of glossed over. Is sure 7 years of software updates. Everyone in this chat who's sort of like snarked at that is correct. There's no way you're going to want to run that phone with the battery health at 6 years if you've been using it as your daily driver. But if you can swap the screen, if you can pop in and get a new battery, if you can reasonably bring those parts to like a local repair shop and they can swap them out for you,
Yeah, yeah.
then that makes that 7 year window much more feasible in the long term. Like I believe we'll actually start seeing, it's going to be a small percentage, but I believe we're going to start seeing people actually running those devices that length of time.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think that's part of the experience as well. I mean, if you're able to, because it's rejuvenating the battery or replacing the battery will rejuvenate the device's experience, obviously.
Oh
So
yeah.
overall, better you're gonna notice that your phone will last you an entire day after 6
I,
years.
I feel
But
like Chop is dropping a comment here that resembles us. The most vocal about long OS updates are ironically the guys who get a new phone every 1 to 2 years. So my favorite is like when someone's like, "Oh, Samsung's going to give you 5 operating system updates, but the best trade-in deals happen 6 months after you
after you
bought your
phone
phone,
after you
so
buy.
get rid of it."
So I'll say this. I'll say this. If you guys are, and I'm assuming if you guys are fans and you've already put in your orders, obviously that's already done. But I will say this. Surprisingly enough, Google isn't giving us the best trade-in deals this year. Best
I
Buy
agree.
is. No, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
well,
Best Buy.
so
Best
for
Buy's doing a lot better.
for
Yeah,
the
for sure.
Pixel 7 Pro, even if you went up all the way to 512 gigs of storage, Google was only offering $420. At least Best Buy was offering 550, I think, or 540 for it. So it was like at least
Hmm.
$100 more. So if you're looking for the best trade-in deals, I think Best Buy may be your best bet for that.
I agree.
But either way,
Either trade in with Best Buy or sell
oh,
on
absolutely.
your on another
Or go to Swappa.
marketplace.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to
Go to
Swappa, yeah.
whatever your preferred resale market. Give it to a friend or somebody, whatever works for you. I think it was
Okay,
just if you're upgrading, yes. So
so we started with
clean
the
up
Pixel 8,
Pixel Ultra. Yep.
and we can move to the Pixel 8 Pro.
Oh, and then
Um,
last thing I want to mention, obviously, I think with the Pixel 8, you get
is
a
this
free
not?
pair of Pixel Buds Pro, um, um, as well. I think if you got the Pixel 8, if I'm
Buy
not
the
mistaken.
new Pixel 8 Pro and get a Pixel Watch 2 or Pixel Buds Pro on us.
But I
And I
think the 8
believe
only got the Buds, if I'm not
I
mistaken.
believe that is good. That deal will be good through the middle of the month, past when the first batches of phones are going to be shipping out to consumers. So even if you don't jump on it immediately, you can still grab a sort of a gift,
Mhm.
along with getting the Pixel 8. It doesn't have to be pre-order.
Yeah, and they're actually offering up the new Pixel 8, the Pixel Watch 2. They're not offering the first Pixel Watch, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you're getting
Yeah,
actually
Pixel Watch
the
2 or
yeah,
the Pixel
exactly,
Buds Pro.
exactly. The Pixel
I,
Buds
I
Pro, they've been out for
in
some time.
terms of costs, I would buy the Pixel Buds Pro and get the Pixel Watch 2 as your freebie. But a couple little, I mean, we've kind of
You could
talked
jump.
all the hardware to death, but I am
Yeah, yeah.
happy to see a flat screen. I love that this is another company that is kind of walking away from curved glass on the front display.
Okay, I'm a little bit torn on that part, but yes, no,
No, you're
I can
not.
appreciate. No, I like
You're
curved.
you're
Okay,
you're like,
don't get me wrong. There is an appreciation for a subtle curve at the end of a
okay.
device, and I will say I like them. I also like flat displays. I just when you're talking $1,000 plus,
Hmm.
uh, it's not a supportive conversation. I've had that before.
Well,
I
this
already
is this
posted about
is
it, but I feel
this
like
is
the
the thing
curved
that we've been
edges
running
would.
into.
No, I know, but I think it's so from a support standpoint, from glasses, cases, and all of that. Obviously, flat displays are much better. Gaming is going to be much better.
Sure.
There is
Any media is going to do with less refraction of light,
refraction
but
or
but but
ghosting,
this
ghost touch,
had
and
to
all of
be
that.
on people's radars. People had to understand. One of the things about curved glass was that it was an expensive aesthetic.
Oh no, absolutely.
You've got to get it. You've got to get a flexible OLED panel,
Hmm.
which we know those aren't cheap. You have to design the engineering and mold or manufacture the glass that's going to curve at the correct angle,
Yeah, no, I'm with
piece
you.
it all into the phone. It makes the repair process significantly more difficult.
Hmm.
It dramatically increases the price. So as all of these prices on components have been scaling up for the manufacturers, the first thing that it makes sense to cut is the thing that's pretty but contributes nothing to the phone's functionality.
Yes, but we then again, what they did is they tried to go to a better panel, and then of course bump up the
Sure.
price by $100 now because
So
we
what
lost
are you
features we
thinking
gained.
with Super Actua? It's the Super Actua display.
I need to wait to see
Because
it
this is
in
one of the
hand.
primary differences between 8 and 8 Pro.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. A much brighter, much better panel, better experience. It's supposed to be well suited for the video boost technology that's going to be kind of coming out there. So essentially, a display that can handle the quality that they're trying to leverage, the Tensor 3 for.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, it's a promising technology. I love how companies love to throw in names and different features. The reality is, does it look good? Does it function the way it's supposed to? And is it going to give us a better experience and not tank our batteries? That would be my main thing. And since we haven't either one of us had a chance to play with it, and the
No.
people that are not reviewing, the people that went to the event saw demo units that will probably not see those units again. It's hard to tell. So it's going to be one of those experiences that I think once we get the devices, when we get our own devices, we can actually start looking at and comparing it. Does it actually, how does it stack up to some of the other devices we have on the
Sure.
market? Obviously not the 7 Pro, because it's not really trying to match with that. But before we leave the flat display part of it, and on the actual, the S24 Ultra is rumored to be a flat display as well. So I feel like more
Yeah.
companies are starting to fade away from the curved
Oh yeah.
edges, the death
I,
of that aesthetic. But
I
yeah,
I mean, like we're talking about, minimal cost per phone, but we're also talking about companies engineering these things in the hundreds of thousands and millions of units, and curved glass on the front display does nothing for the
no, I
functionality
I, I
of the
get it,
phone.
but
So if you can save some money there, then you can do things like, hey, instead of having the sort of warped OLED, what if we could work on an OLED that almost doubles the peak brightness? And then we're not over engineering an aesthetic choice.
no, I'm
We're
with you.
delivering a more practical choice. And I think
No,
more consumers are probably gonna appreciate that, and especially where it's trying to make some part of this conversation. Like Google is going in heavy on, like iPhone owners. If you've ever been tempted by some of this stuff, look at all these advertisements that Google is putting out about how easy it is to switch or to give it a test drive or to try and check this stuff out. And not to say it needs to be like the iPhone, but it is going to be a little more familiar. And I think that's going to reassure consumers that, like, my phone isn't more fragile at the edges, cough, cough, Pixel Watch. But
oh, that's right.
this
That's
is
right. Yeah,
something,
yeah, yeah. Exactly. You
it's
have,
funny. It's like we've
yeah,
gone
we
in one
talked about it.
direction.
Yeah,
We're talking more about durability and repairability and all that other stuff.
because
But
they
we'll
did
get to
keep some
Pixel Watch
curves.
too
Yeah,
in
yeah,
just a bit.
they did keep some curves on these conversations. So yeah, but I mean, so a good part of what they were talking about though was also I felt like was leveraging server-based processing. The video boost technology that they were talking about sounded like as if the video will be processed or post-processed using online services or internet connectivity to be
Well,
able to
so
get the content.
we're
Did I
gonna
miss that?
someone's gonna no, you're right. Someone's gonna have to fact check me on this.
Okay.
But as far as I understand it, um, so this expert video processing, I'm trying to find on their website. I should have tried to organize this better.
God
That
dang it.
your phone is going to shoot a standard kind of
I think
UHD
standard.
video,
Yeah, exactly.
but it is going to be saving data that can then be worked on server side to significantly expand the dynamic range and the HDR-ness of your video in a way that's similar to how Pixels process their
Your
HDR
image.
plus photos,
Exactly.
their stills. And I am very skeptical about the real world in the field on 5G data connections experience for what that's going to look like when people start trying to shove 4K video, 4K HDR video
Hmm.
up those 5G pipes to get worked on and then brought back down. And I'm also going to be very skeptical because, like, I'm on Mint Mobile
Hmm.
and it is really just the best deal for me to not be on their unlimited plan.
Yeah.
Occasionally, from month to month, maybe I've got to buy a little bit more data, but like, if my Pixel, and I've got it set up to do this where it's like, hey, I've shot this beautiful video and I'm kind of autopiloting when
Hmm.
it's getting uploaded and worked on and brought back down to my phone. How quickly is that going to nuke a metered data connection when people aren't even thinking about it? Or for folks that are like living in places that have data caps on their home broadband.
Oh
So
yeah.
like, oh, I don't have to worry about it. It's not going up on 5G, but it's working in the background whenever I'm on Wi-Fi. And then you look at your Comcast statement, and you're like, oh, I used like an extra 100 gig this month. How did that happen? It's those little things that sound really cool, but the general direction that I really appreciated from Google was walking away from server side stuff and doing more computational
That's what they were trying. They were doing
stuff
that
on
starting with like
device.
Pixel 6 and even earlier generation, the assistant running on device. There was a lot, and they're still leveraging on the Pixel Pro some on device. Like I think the advanced Magic Eraser is on device, and I think some of their generative AI functionalities are still running on device. But the two functionalities that, well, at least the video function part of it that kind of threw me is, so what's going to hinder the conversation, at least from a theoretical point of view, is you just shot the video, right? And you're
Hmm.
expecting it to be this. Obviously, maybe after a few tries, you'll get to understand and expect how things will look. But you're going to have to wait for that video to process at that on the server side
Yep,
before you can see what it looks like. So if you're in the middle of it and you're shooting, you're hoping for things to turn out as great as they're going to. Mind you, I'm not poking I'm not questioning Google's capabilities. It's more of the timing. I trust that if they're going to release a feature and say that it's going to do a
sure.
specific function, it will try to do that at its best. But it is still required, as you said, to try to do it over the internet. There is that whole timeliness and when you're able to kind of shoot and record and so on. So some of those things I'm excited about. I would hope that what they're referring to, like that magic eraser function where you're able to move subjects from one place
Sure.
to the other. We saw that teased maybe 2 years ago or so at IO, right? Didn't they
I
show
don't
us like a
remember.
teaser?
It feels like that is
It
something that they've been
This is
showing
something
off
they
for a
showed
while.
us. The voice isolator, I think that was a really cool function that I feel like this is what Sony was trying to do with their audio pro service that they're trying to that they have on their
Hmm.
devices, where you do upload the file on server,
Sure.
but this one does again same thing, and it separates the tracks, and you're able to figure out which one is what. I think the new recorder will definitely start showing us some really cool features as well. The ability of, I think, was it oh man, what was the new feature on the recorder? I forgot that there was a good update for the recorder app. I forgot. It's not chapters. Narration. Is it? Oh, summarization. It's going to summarize the conversation for you, where it
Using
gives
all
you
the Bard plugins and
using the
stuff. Yeah.
Bard plugin, similar to when you do a Google search and you find this page of all these places to hit, and then suddenly, shoo, like this is what it's trying to tell you. You know, egg whites and toast work great together. It's like, okay, great. I just saved myself 20 minutes. Like one of those.
TLDR. Just
Yeah.
give me the TLDR. That's great.
Exactly. Give me the cliff notes, my friend. Cliff notes, cliff notes, cliff notes. I
So
lived
so we
through those
went
when
we
I was
went
in
running
college.
ahead on like server side services and stuff. We haven't really even talked about the phone. There's a Tensor 3,
What?
so that's
The
pretty cool.
Tensor 3. Wow, they're up to 3.
Yeah, we're up to generation 3 of the
I'm
Tensor.
waiting for them to get to the G6, my friend. We all know about the
Uh-huh.
G6. The 6 is where it's at. But yes, 3 is cool.
Yeah. So that'll be like a Snapdragon 821. So Tensor G3, a
G3 is so
much more conventional core configuration. I loved that Google went out there and said, now we're using up-to-date ARM reference design components for the CPU and GPU.
Yeah, I got it. I like it.
Um, I feel like we can pretty confidently say this, like previous Pixels over the last 2 years, this will probably be the poorest synthetic benchmark performer
Y-
of 2023.
I
I don't
was
think I'm
alluding
being
to that in the
controversial
beginning.
there.
No, 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 no. And I'm with you. And I think that's what I was alluding to it kind of indirectly. You don't judge a pixel by the benchmarks. You judge it by how it works and how well it does what it's supposed to do. And I think tensors are built and the software around tensor is built to optimize all of those Google services and functions and your daily activities. If you've ever used a pixel, you know exactly how well the device runs. Regardless of thermals, it runs and it does the job. That's the Pixel 7 was definitely one of my favorite devices. The 7 Pro was because of that, and I lived with that as my
Hmm.
daily driver up till the point where I just said, I can't deal with the thermals anymore, and I had to shift, and I went over to an Edge Plus 2023 from Moto. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough one.
So the googly bits of Tensor G3, which got the majority of the attention during the keynote, and
Mhm.
again, it's the thing that with all of the leaks that have come out for this device, for all of the like people that have gone hands-on, I know this is Tech Today. Brandon was out there just like,
Oh yeah,
let me show you every single screenshot of every single data page and every single spec that I can, and I feel like that misses the point of what Pixels have traditionally done well since the Pixel 4. It's usually not the traditional CPU GPU compute stuff.
Hmm.
Ever since I forget what it was called, but the machine learning core and the ISP path on the Pixel 4,
Yeah.
the Pixel 4 was one of the worst benchmarking phones of its generation, and it was radically faster at doing like heavy computational tasks like rendering video. That's
Oh yeah.
actually Pixel 4 was one of the phones that helped motivate my testing in real world apps, because you would throw like, at the time I was on Power Director and 4K video renders at this phone, and it was outpacing laptops for similar video quality.
Hmm.
And I feel like that's the part of the conversation. Every single time we just fall back on an Antutu score or Geekbench 6 score, we miss what these other components on the SoC are actually capable of driving for real world. So I'm hoping that what we're going to see is probably at least a Tensor G3 that is on paper more competitive
Hmm.
against a MediaTek Dimensity 9200 or a
Hmm.
Snapdragon 8 Gen 2,
Yeah, yeah.
but still has that little bit of Google secret sauce for the TPU, the machine learning components, the ISP. And if those components are starting to do things like what we've seen from Vivo and Xiaomi, where if you've got a really good ISP on your SoC, I love these abbreviations, your image signal processing
ISP.
hardware,
Yeah.
um, that can also be a huge benefit for your display. So whatever's chewing up your camera data, if that's also driving your screen, that means you don't need the traditional GPU to weigh in on creating the image that you're looking at.
Hmm.
That can actually kind of work in tandem, and it reduces your battery life. Samsung components like Samsung radios, a Pixel will need all the help it can get finding those opportunities to reduce load and to reduce thermals in these individual little processing tasks. So
Yep.
if we can offload the display from always just being on the GPU to being also tacked onto the ISP, then that is a significant savings. Like that is a significant performance advantage. So now that we know that, or at least to me, it still seems confirmed, like that's kind of the process of what Google is trying to accomplish,
Yeah.
is talking about software services, and now they're going all in on AI stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think what's kind of interesting is to see so much of this conversation still hinge on what else we can stitch into the assistant and how else we can expand the functionality
Well,
of those
because
types
we've
of
we've
user
kind of
queries.
been in a somewhat of a lull of an experience on the assistant since pre-pandemic. Actually, if you think about it, the best improvement we got on the assistant was the somewhat of better integration with Google Maps. The way they had it present on the bottom, then you had the button that was present there for Google Maps. But I think for the most part, the assistant has been pretty much more kind of like running about the same level up till now, up till the fact that when Bard
Mhm.
became an experiment, more people are using it and they're trying to combine Bard and the assistant, which makes perfect sense. Um, and then having it obviously available for early access for some testers, but even for Pixel owners. So the Pixel 8 and Pixel 8 Pro could potentially get access to that early assistant with Bard conversation going on. And I wouldn't be surprised if a few years later that the name Bard kind of just drops and it becomes just the smarter assistant. And that we just
Yeah.
basically still use that terminology. But um,
And
it's
then you'll
not
have a headline, Google's killing Bard.
after so many years. It's like Google's killing another service. Yeah, I think that'll be the headline. And then right when under it says, "Yep, they're combining it with Assistant, and now they're just going to call it the Assistant." I'm like, you, oh my god, yeah, no, I know, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's a title. They're going to play the game, but I think there's a lot of. I mean, I'll say this. When you use a Pixel for a while and you leave the Pixel, you start realizing some of the cool features the Pixel has that you just don't have anymore. Like the ability of knowing how long the wait time on a number that you're
Yeah.
about to call, but you haven't hit send yet. Like it shows you right there. I remember I was trying to call, I think it was Spectrum, I think at the time. And it told me that at the time I was trying to call, there's going to be a high wait time before I even dialed. And it gave me the
Yeah.
timeline where it's going to be better. And I waited a little bit, answering calls for you, waiting on hold for you. Those smart function of being able to dictate and send text messages using the assistant on a Gboard on a Pixel is different than when you use it on other devices. And you try to do it again, and you're like, "Why is it not working?" Like, "Oh yeah, it's not a Pixel." They're they're really doing good about making the Pixel experience unique, And every time they release a new feature, it makes it even more unique. Like having that again, that enhanced AI generative backfilling for deleting content off
Yeah,
the like a picture. That's crazy, but like that's exactly what we've all been watching these videos on, like Photoshop, right?
yeah,
Generative
yeah,
fill, generative
content
fill,
aware. Yeah.
content aware, and then I think that's what we need. We need more of that. So I'm excited. Hopefully, when I do get my hands on my own device, I'll definitely be able to test out what it's available now, and hopefully what we'll see later. It's specifically the pro mode in the camera. I'm excited now. We can
Hmm.
not only shoot full 50 megapixel. Again, I feel like I've heard some guy ask for those things a few years ago.
Oh no, he
Um,
was kind of a douchebag though.
Absolutely, dude. That I like. I've
He
been
was
meaning
always
this
walking
to.
around in those doofy flat caps, like, oh, I think it should
I
matter
don't
if
know.
you're
Soapboxing
advertising
all
50
the
megapixels.
time, asking for
Oh,
full
you just
sensor
that guy
readout
could
on a
shut up for a
pixel.
minute,
Just a
like
minute,
a
yeah.
minute. He's
But it's finally
such a
here.
Google hater.
It's finally here. He got what he wanted a few years later.
So we're obviously being silly.
Extremely facetious.
Um,
Yeah. Sorry.
it has bothered me tremendously that I've got a Pixel 6 Pro and a Pixel 7 Pro on my desk with amazeballs 50 megapixel cameras that have never had and probably will never get full resolution stills. I feel Google is in an actionable position for a truth in advertising kind of class action lawsuit. It
Mhm.
is not good to advertise that. I feel like the conversation from Sony was to say, hey, we've got this pixel dense sensor on the Xperia 1 Mark V, but we're sticking to 12 megapixel output for all three of the main camera sensors. That's the native resolution of what you're outputting here, but we're using this new sensor technology for some of this other color processing and
For the
the
X mode, yeah.
stack that they're
Yeah.
doing for those pixel for the pixel trench or the pixel well.
Yeah.
So anyway, uh, I'm happy to see it. It's one of the things that I have wanted really badly to see what Google will do.
Hmm.
Ever since Vivo started giving us Super Raw, so Super Raw is kind of like if you're an old school photographer if you're an old school photographer like me, we used to shoot brackets. You
Hmm.
set up your little DSLR and you tell the camera, I want to take 5 exposures with half stop increments. So you start like 2 stops under, you end 2 stops over, and then you can take all of those 5 photos and you can smush them into Photoshop and you can make a really, really wonderful image out of that stack of images. Well, all of our smartphone cameras do something like that
Hmm.
in the HDR modes now. It's some
Yeah.
kind of burst of DNG files that are squished together and it outputs higher dynamic range for the fully processed compressed JPEG.
Yeah.
But what
Yeah.
Vivo started doing, and then Apple and Samsung and Xiaomi and OnePlus now has a RAW Plus mode, is Vivo would take the stack of DNGs, the raw files, and then output a very minimally processed but high dynamic range DNG. So it took a stack of these raw files, squished them down, and it's not really a raw file, but it's the same container. So it's a much bigger file with a lot more information that you can further edit from.
Yep.
And out of all of the companies that handle HDR processing and can squish all of that data in a reasonable time frame and output something really interesting, that's been Google's MO since the Nexus is like
Yeah.
HDR plus. So the one company I have wanted to see them try something like this the most, I want to see what Google's HDR processing style looks like when it's applied to a computational DNG file. So that's the thing I'm most excited about is now they're saying, hey, we can put out a 50 megapixel raw file. I'm 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 feeling like we're probably gonna get just that first layer of processing that we see
Mhm.
about what makes a pixel JPEG
Yeah.
so interesting. So we'll get it all squished together, we'll get a little of that HDR goodness applied, but then we'll have more data if we want to get in there. Crop, zoom, edit, really bring up highlights, really stretch the range in that photo. That's what I'm anxious for because pixel raw files have been kind of garbage
Hmm.
since the Pixel line started. They're almost always an MRAW, like a really compressed RAW file. We know these sensors should be putting out 20 to 30 megabyte files, and a Pixel will put out like an 8 megabyte RAW. So you
Yeah.
know you're not really getting all the data off that sensor. That is actually a surprisingly big step for the Pixel team to acknowledge like Yeah, people do want more control over their photos. It's not just Juan being a cranky butt.
No,
And then
I remember
also,
when you asked that question, their response back was
that's
people
not what we
don't
believe
need.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, we don't think people really need these type of them. Like, are you
They're
serious?
so I want to give them credit because, like, again, I'm a big fan of a number of the people on the hardware team. I
Yeah.
think they've got an incredible team of people that are passionate and making some really great products. I feel like the individuals, I'm more excited by those people on the team than I am the executive decisions of what's happening at the top of Alphabet. So we've always got to separate Google out into their individual parts. And then in every division, it's there are individuals that I've actually been following their careers. Like, that guy's cool. I like what he's doing on the camera team.
No, no.
Um, I brought that up and I was
I
like,
missed
hey,
those meetings, by the way. I missed those
I know
sessions where
those
we
briefs
able
were so
to.
good.
Yeah.
But I brought that up for, I think the last time we had one was for the Pixel 6. I think it was
I
when I
did.
brought when we
So
started
there.
talking about Pixel 6.
E,
But regardless,
6 was
um,
Isa, 7 was Shannon. I think it was around 7.
mhm.
I want to say there was some type of a session around 7 last year. Snubs, Shannon Moore is, I think, was the MC on that one, if I'm not
Maybe.
mistaken. I could be wrong. Yeah,
So I put it out there, and like for me, it was things like you put on these really great astrophotography modes,
yeah.
but the camera won't always focus to infinity. It would be helpful if I could just
Focus it.
manually focus out to infinity.
Slide it all the way to infinity. I'm with you.
You've
No,
given us these like split sliders for exposure adjustments. Like, I can expose highlights and lowlights
shadows. Yeah, the
separately,
shadows.
but you could just give me shutter speed if I needed to control how bright or how dark the photo was. And I liked his response. I mean, he was like to the point. It was like, no, we're
Oh no,
not
no.
going to do that.
I
And
got
no, no, no.
the
I'm trying to
approach.
say what his response was, and
Go for it.
um, his response was, we're trying to look at what the result of what the person is trying to do using ISO and shutter speed.
Hmm.
So if someone is trying to use ISO and shutter speed, we're trying to anticipate why they would do that. And instead of having separate ISO and shutter speed controls, we're trying to give them something in the app that delivers that result. And in a world where we scoff at TikTok editing, but you've got people out there doing like picture in picture, green screen, like advanced video composition, but just through app versions of all those tools. I think that makes sense. But like we've said, even with those tools that Google has put in, like near focus, far focus, and the astrophotography mode, cool. After a point, it really is just easier to use the same photography tools that we've been giving cameras since the invention of the digital SLR.
Yeah. No, no. Thank you. And I think the historically we've had the similar conversations back in the day when they gave us a primary and and a telephoto lens as opposed to giving us a primary and an ultra wide, and then the answer was, well, because
Mm-hmm.
people need a telephoto. it I understand it's always depending on the mindset and the time when the question's asked and the time where the depending on the needs that the company believes in it. But we are seeing an evolving company, we are seeing an evolving software experience. I do hope, and this is a very much a big hope, that when this feature does drop, maybe we'll start seeing some of those benefits roll back to the 7 Pro, maybe in the 6 Pro, being that they are technically considered to be on the higher end of their devices. Even if they do,
Mm-hmm.
keep that as a Pro feature, at least keep it to the 6 and 7 Pro, because they're not exactly, dead at this point. Obviously, G1 and G2 are still very powerful processors.
There's a potential for maybe the 7 Pro, but the 7 Pro got some camera features that the 6 Pro still lacks. And I
Yeah,
kind of feel like 6 Pro, that pie's baked. Like, I don't think we're going to see anything too radically
too
different
radical. Okay.
coming to the 6 Pro. And I think moving forward, we're finally into an era where I think Google is putting more confidence into their SoC. They're working with a slight revision on the camera sensor. So there could be, I don't know the granular details between the Samsung GN1 and the Samsung GNV that might prohibit some of this, but there could be hardware architectural differences
Okay.
that prevent a 7 Pro from doing some of the things that the 8 Pro
The
might
8
be
Pro will do.
capable of doing. You're this like again, it's a cousin of what Vivo had, and what Vivo had was a little bit different than what Google was playing with on the X80 Pro.
Hmm.
So it's almost impossible to know like what part of this is just, well, we don't want to extend support back and we do kind of want people to buy our new phone, and what part of this is literally like we can't add that because this phone lacks literally this component that would enable this feature. And it's not just software; it's something else that has to happen in that processing.
No,
So
I'm with you.
we'll have to kind of keep an eye on the phones that were more on the 3-year operating system and 5-year security patch updates.
Hmm.
What kind of feature mobility we can really go back towards? Like, are we going to look back in a couple years on Tensor 1 and Tensor 2 and go like, okay, maybe they were a little too experimental, or maybe they were a little too transitional,
Hmm.
and Google really didn't have as much control. I just threw on 5 phones on my desk saying the G word. Oh
I
my god.
imagine your phones. Imagine all of our friends if they're watching us on anything with speakers. We got to work
Oh,
on
even
your.
I even got an iQOO fire up here. That was pretty good. They're not
Hey,
all just pixels.
I.
And a Xiaomi. All right, good. Well, I'm turning off screens, so
Yep,
we can kind of keep this going.
we're doing it live.
So Pixel 8 Pro, I
Yep.
feel it's still fair to bring up some of the omissions. Our good friend Mishal has been
Yeah.
really digging into the source code, and we will not have official confirmation on things like video output
Oh no, no.
if the
Officially, no
hardware.
word. There, I forgot. How to men. I forgot the name of the gentleman.
Mhm.
Did post here. It does not support it. There is
Well,
no video out.
this is what I mean though is Mishal digging into the source code.
Oh, yeah, that's
If
right.
if the inability to output video is hardware or software, and that conceivably you might be able to root a Pixel 8 Pro, change some of the markers in the Android operating system,
System and
and tell
potentially
the
active.
phone that it has this capability. And if it's in the hardware, then we should be able to output a video signal
So
from the Pixel 8 Pro.
the original, I think his original finding was built into Android 14. I think that's where he was able to uncover some of that code.
Right.
So yes, the obviously the hope is obviously that the hardware is capable of providing video over USB, and that it right now is basically maybe just a feature that Google isn't ready to release, and that it is just
Yeah.
keeping it under taps for some time, which is not uncommon. Again, not everything announced. Yes, keep calling it yesterday, but not everything was announced that was announced on
Right.
during the launch event is coming right away. It's going to be gradual. December seems to be the big party time, where I feel like a good number of those things are going to be coming in as part of a feature drop for the Pixel 8 series. So exactly, yeah. Video out would have been. Actually, I kind of was like holding my breath on that one as well. That the whole time
I was
I wanted them to
very
show one
confident.
slide, say, and now you can connect your device to an external monitor and enjoy a much bigger.
Yeah.
I'm like, nope, not a
I
word.
was
And
pretty
then
confident we weren't going to get it. Google has
I,
broken my heart so many times before with updates to desktop mode and oh, this new feature and maybe we'll get it this time, and I was almost positive. But what's keeping hope alive,
yeah,
and one of the things, like if you follow Mishal on Mastodon, boy howdy is that guy prolific posting across social media. One of the things is if this is not an omission of hardware, is that if Google is working on some of these improvements to things like the alternative view, alt display mode,
yeah.
is that maybe that is going to be an Android 15 feature that finally ties all those pieces together.
And
Which
then that
on a
may be
phone
able to.
that's looking for 7 years of software support doesn't feel like too horrible of a compromise to
Oh,
finally get the Google flavor of
exactly.
plug phone into TV, get Chrome OS
Yes. No,
on TV.
dude, I seriously want that feature to happen or to exist. I would love to be able to manifest that into existence, because the reality is such a good synergy, not symmetry,
Yeah,
synergy between the two teams. We already have Android apps on Chromebooks. Why can't we have Chrome OS on Android as the desktop experience? Like,
yeah.
mind blown. Like, the teams should really meet somewhere over coffee in the cafeteria and say, like, hey, we should collab and do something.
Hey, hey, so nudge, nudge, nudge.
When the
Couple
Pixel
comments
team comes
here.
in. Yeah, yeah.
Michael Corcoran, lack of video output is definitely my biggest disappointment so far. Farhan replying, I also noticed that my phone got hotter when using wireless screencasting in desktop mode, even when I disabled mobile data and was only using Wi-Fi,
Yeah.
because that's a good point to follow up Aditya and Nil's comment. Would
Hey.
be more scummy, IMO would be Google making a dock through which we'd exclusively be able to access desktop mode. And that's my concern is right now, Google is the one doing the proprietary video screencasting
Yeah.
where, most of our phones are all using Miracast, but if you want to screen share from a Pixel, you've got to Chromecast it. It is I have one box on my desk that I can install a sketchy app that will use the screen recorder
Yeah.
and then use the real-time recording from the screen recorder to then output another image over an HDMI cable. And your frame rates are like 10 frames a second. It's miserable. It does not work well. And I'm sure that crazy app that's mostly in Chinese is not like raking my screen for all my personal data. I'm positive that's totally safe and secure and my
Oh, man.
privacy is intact.
You are safe as a button there. You can just basically, yeah. No, no. I mean, don't get me wrong. Look, it's sad. It's but you're right. I built up my hopes too high. I saw his tweet, and I was like, oh my god, is this the year? Is this the year? Is this the year? And
I
I was like,
wanted
no,
it,
no,
but
no, no, no.
to me it was a I'm not holding my breath until it's in my hand and I see that it works.
Hope for the best, but
And
expect the worst. That's a
yeah,
true life philosophy that you really should live by. And I think I felt
in
my heart
tech,
fell for
yeah,
that because well, I mean, look, the reality is this is a year where Google's releasing. So we have the 7A, we have the 8 and the 8 Pro, but they also have the Fold. Like so,
yeah.
there's a longer stretch of devices that we're looking at. I mean, there's more devices from Google in this year than we've ever had, and different
Hmm.
categories as well. Like ultra budget, mid range, full performance, foldable, and we're going to talk a little bit more as well about your long-term coverage that you have on that as well. It's no, going beyond. I think the experience that we're looking from Google this year is it's expanding, so I was hopeful that that would have been one of those little nuggets that he was able to uncover, and then Google just shines it up, puts it, and then
Yeah.
everybody would be like, ooh, finally. No, but yeah, no, I'm sure not a lot of people are like as disappointed. I probably say, or like I feel like I let down in a little bit by it, because I think most people were not expecting it. They were like, it's okay. I
But
think the
it is a
cameras
little
and everything.
galling because like got a bunch of iPhone 15 people out there like finally
Yeah,
getting a sense of what like the full impact of USB-C might mean for their devices. And one of the cool things was,
video.
oh, without stupid
Uh,
iOS Lightning dongles, I can really easily mirror on the 15, not just the 15 Pro,
mhm.
but on the iPhone 15. I can do this video out. I can plug it into another monitor. And you had a what was great for me was it wasn't Android nerds running into that space. It was a whole bunch of salty iPad fans. Like, yes, we have been able to do this for years. We've been trying to tell you it was cool. We've been so frustrated that Apple has stuck with Lightning because iPad has been showing us this is awesome. And it was finally one of those moments for me. It was like, validating, I'm patting myself on the back here, but validating that like you've been so caught up in an Apple is right, everything Apple does, we should let Apple do how they want to run their products, that literally other Apple users on other products have been saying this doesn't make any sense and you're really missing out on something that could be functional and practical and expand the way that you use these supposedly incredibly powerful phones. And it was great. Like I just got to sit back. I had like my little bucket of popcorn. I'm just chewing away like let them fight. Let them fight. Let them
It
fight.
it is absolutely, and then, but if you heard Apple, obviously their approach to that was like, we were just making synergy between our ecosystems, and that's why we brought in
Yeah.
this USB-C over. But no, look, at the end, Pixel is still on a path of advancement, and again, there is still the hope again that things could get better. But I don't want to, obviously, with that being kind of like obviously somewhat of a sour point. I think with all the other information they announced, I feel like a lot of good things are coming in.
Hmm.
I'm hoping that the battery life is going to be definitely improved with specifically since it's coming out with Android 14.
Yeah.
Still running a 30-watt charger. I'm assuming obviously still wireless charging. I don't think they omitted that
Yeah.
part of it. And then as you could expect, 120 hertz refresh rate on it with the true Actua the no, the Pro Actua display. Sorry, Pro Actua display on the 7 Pro. I'm sorry, the 8 Pro, and I think it should be starting to be available next week on the 12th, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, it should be
in
shipping out
stores.
pretty
So
soon.
you should be able to,
Yeah.
like, if you'd like to check it out, you could go down to your local Best Buy. You could go down to your local carriers as well, because I think there's going to be versions of this devices available also at the carrier side. So again, um, full on yearly upgrade, but a lot of good promises, and I feel like it should not disappoint even if you were missing the video out, which I feel like is like totally the most important feature, but they should have just totally made the whole event around video out. Like just have
I
somebody
mean, we've
play
been
video
telling
games.
them for
Yeah,
years.
I know.
Think of all the cool things you could do.
All of the Chrome
I
OS things. But yeah.
no, yeah, but
Yeah.
it makes me sad
Yeah. Yeah.
because we've seen on a couple games
Hmm.
through partnerships with ASUS, you can do really interesting things of sending the game to a larger display and then having your phone be either a control surface or something else.
Dude, Diablo runs
LumaFusion,
so nice on a bigger display when you're playing it on the ROG phone. I'm like,
right?
come on. Like Diablo does, but like but Asus and Red Magic do that very well with their docks as well. They
Hmm.
do have the ecosystem and the hardware to build around it. But again, it's been like the vanguard of like, and when we talk about surfaces with computers, the pixels
Sure.
of devices, those are the things that we typically would expect that just should have been just there. And I feel like we always have to do that
Hmm.
backfill, right? The whole
Right.
split screen functionality that kind of got backfilled into Android.
Hmm.
Some of the optimizations for tablet backfilled into Android. A lot of things that other companies have to evolutionary upgrade and
Hmm.
write over Android so that Google at some point will incorporate it, and then we start getting the benefit of that on other devices like 12L and 13, and of course
Hmm.
now with 14 optimizations for tablets and foldables like the Pixel Fold that you're
Yeah.
talking. And we're going to touch base on that, but I think there's a couple more, well, one more thing actually really is the
Yeah.
Pixel Watch 2. The new
Sure.
Pixel Watch 2, which surprisingly looks exactly the same as the Pixel Watch 1.
What? It's the same.
It looks the same. No, it looks aesthetically, from what I understand, at least from what I was able to gather, is visually it looks the same. Although there's quite a bit of hardware changes on the inside, from the processor to the heart rate sensor technology that they're using in there. Also, even down to the charging connectors that they were using there, because according to Max Weinbach, they're actually using now a is it a
Oh,
Pogo?
it's
Not a
you see
Pogo.
you saw it in the announcement. It's a 4-pin. So
Oh,
it's
oh,
the same
sorry. Yeah,
charger that
I
Fitbit
was gonna.
is
I was
using for some of their watches.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense. More of a synergy. I mean, there a lot of the stuff they talked about was also Fitbit
It
related.
really is only a bummer for first gen Pixel Watch owners
Hmm.
that if you go like say you want to go from a Pixel Watch to a Pixel Watch 2. I know like people shouldn't be flipping tech like that, but I'm sure there are a handful of people that exist like that.
No.
That the Pixel Watch 1 is the evolutionary dead end. The way that they did the wireless charger on the Pixel Watch 1. But if you wanted to go from a Fitbit to a Pixel Watch 2, you
Hmm.
actually have an upgrade path where one of your cables might still work for getting your new watch. So it's they didn't talk about it, but they did show it, the back of the watch during the keynote. And the
I
second I saw
totally
it, it was like 4 pins, 4 pins.
I didn't see it.
That's
I
different.
totally missed that part, and I caught it more on. I think was it Max was tweeting about the fact that you forgot it, you didn't notice it that it came to. I don't use a Fitbit. I had Fitbits a long, long time ago, so I could not reference the connector style to more what Fitbit used to use. I know that the first one was magnetic, but it was also magnetic to their specific charger, and it wasn't just charging on everything. So
Hmm.
there was a again the upgrades that we've seen here. I think for me at least the spoke the loudest, which Google again did not mention on stage, but it's the fact that it is powered by a Qualcomm processor now.
Yep.
So they finally switched over to that very popular Qualcomm chip that is made for wearables, that apparently every device manufacturer that has used it has been super happy, namely our friends over at Xiaomi with their brand new Watch Pro
Hmm.
2 that just came out about a couple of weeks ago. So promising us a full day, which is a weird thing to say because when they said it on stage, I feel like they're addressing the fact that there was a quite a bit of a concern. The first generation Pixel Watch almost never ran a full day with always on display. If you have
No.
the always on display, it was a well-known thing.
Even if you don't have the always-on
I'll
display,
say
my wife's Pixel Watch does not last a full 24
it
hours.
will
It's getting charged
it,
off
you have
periods. Yeah.
you get off you get out of bed in the morning and you put it straight on the charger. Otherwise, all you did is no. There was a substantial difference, obviously, in the processing power. I think we have 2 gigs of RAM, 32 gigs of internal storage on the new one. The updated heart rate sensor, the you could see here the design on the back with the charging capability. But it is essentially what they're focusing on is that it will last a 24-hour period of day of basically full day, full night of night tracking. Obviously, since they want that data as well to be able to leverage the Fitbit AI functionalities, and that is a big improvement considering I think that's what people were expecting last year, but it's nice
Hmm.
that it's coming this year, and you get it for free if you pre-order the Pixel. If you pre-order the Pixel 8
Yep.
Pro, the Wi-Fi edition. And I think if you want to go to the LTE, which they are also releasing, they didn't mention if the LTE will last that long, but I think that one's an extra just 50. So if you don't want to get the free Wi-Fi version, you just pay 50 for the LTE version. It's still very nice if you
Hmm.
are if you like to rock an LTE connected watch. Which, speaking of which, I think I need to set up the LTE on the Xiaomi Watch Pro 2 because I think I haven't tested that part out yet. I want to see how the battery life is. But needless to say, oh yeah, there it is. I can see. Okay, I think that looks like a pin, right? Or no, maybe I
You
can't
can
tell.
see the pins in the reflection too. Right there.
Okay. Well, that's old man TK. Can't see it. Yeah, I can. Okay, now I can see it. Yep, there, as clear as mud.
You
I'm
can't
sorry.
unsee it
Yeah,
now that
once
it's
you
been
see it,
shown it to
I
you.
mean, so we'll see. We'll see. Um, what are your impressions with this being that you so I'll be honest, I used the Pixel Watch first generation Pixel Watch LTE. I even
Yeah.
connected it to LTE connection and I did my review. And I think after some point that I switched over to TechWatch. So
I went back to
I'm
the
not
Tick
going to say I
Watch.
used it for the extended amount of time. Has your experience with the Pixel Watch s- a year later been the same expectations that you would imagine with other things, other
I
devices?
was very disappointed in the Pixel Watch. Being a Tick Watch fan, I like Mavoy hardware better.
Dude, to
And
this day, nobody does it. Nobody's even tried jumping into that. Like Mavboy is literally just putting it out there for generations of
mhm.
devices. That second display is it's literally where it's at. You just turn off the main display, that power hungry system, and let it run on that lower power, and it will last you for days. That's what I love. Like the five
Yeah.
is really nice. Sorry, go ahead.
So Marie is using the Pixel Watch.
Hmm.
The back cover just popped off. So the plastic on the heart rate sensor
Okay.
now, without the little clip-on case that she uses just to kind of try and protect
Oh,
the sides of the watch,
yeah, I think we bought that one
it's
together.
basically getting sweat soaked whenever she goes to like work out. So we know that watch is probably not long for this world, and there isn't really a great system of repair for or
No,
replacement or
it's not one
you
of the
know
things they leverage. Yeah.
that for as much as Google made some really great commitments to software and hardware repairability for their phones,
Hmm.
this to me is one of the glaring omissions of their keynote. Is smartwatches already are similar to earbuds in kind of being an e-waste proposition. And
Yeah.
now I feel manufacturers need to do a better job of getting after their accessories, that their accessories are not just almost yearly disposable, which is not a great look for this product.
I feel like I want to say that they did mention something about the fact that they were using more recycled materials in
Yeah,
their
that
watch.
that's not it though.
Yeah,
Is you want to keep the watches out of landfills, they need to be repairable or replaceable.
or recyclable.
And that has been one of the most disappointing. Well, recyclable means that the consumer has to get them back to Google to be recycled. And
Well,
unfortunately,
yeah,
we also know that a lot of people are just going to go, "Oh, it doesn't work anymore, and so won't fix it. I'll just throw it away." And that means you don't really get the benefit of recycling this stuff and it having it go back
I
into
will
another
say
product.
the one thing I do I'm not gonna say that it's nice to see that at least Samsung does have like when I upgraded to the Watch 6 Pro or 6 Classic this year with
Hmm.
Samsung's thing, I traded in my Watch 5 Pro. They allow you to trade in watches. Samsung is not
Sure.
they are
Google has, I mean, like on the Google Watch too, you can do. Dang it! Another 5 phones just lit up. They've got like a watch trade-in program, and you can do some of that
Cool.
stuff too. But like the reality is, if a consumer doesn't feel like they're going to get money for sending in their old thing, it's far less likely that they're just going to, out of the goodness of their heart, contribute this to the reasonable or responsible recycling of these things. Often it's like not worth the hassle. It ends up in a drawer, the battery dies, and then you just kind of throw it away one day.
Oh no, absolutely.
Even
Yeah,
even out here, it's difficult to always find those like tech toxic material recycling centers. There aren't a lot of them, but that's what our tax dollars pay for when we buy a new TV here in
oh, dude,
California.
I need to
So
set up some time to go down to that place and I
it's
have some.
it's awesome. You just roll up and you've got your trunk full of bags of old e-waste, and they'll run out and take it for you.
I
But
appreciate
the other thing that really spoke to me on this, I appreciate what they're doing with Fitbit, and I
it. Yeah,
understand that Google is wanting to stitch those ecosystems together. So
yeah.
they're forcing every Android Wear, or excuse me, every Wear OS partner
Hmm.
to make their own companion app because they
Yeah.
want to use Fitbit as their front end. But the thing
Oh,
that I'm going to be very frustrated with is if Google is now using a Qualcomm SoC,
yes.
they're no longer using a Samsung chip.
Hmm.
If Fossil and Casio and Mobvoi and all of these other Xiaomi,
Yeah, yeah.
if all of these other
Well,
partners
Xiaomi
are
does have the
not
assist.
getting, if
Yeah, yeah,
all of these other partners are not getting updates, because they're all stuck on Wear OS 3,
oh,
and it's only
absolutely.
Samsung and Google moving
Yeah,
on to Wear OS 4,
even
if they
Xiaomi's
are
new watch
still
3.5. That is, it's not on
left out
4.
in the cold, I am going to be even more frustrated with the current reality of Wear OS, and I will personally be looking at a way to exit. It's not a business model that I want to support. I
Hmm.
don't think Google has done a good job of supporting the partners who have kept their watch ecosystem on life support for years, while Google kind of let it wither on the vine. You can thank Fossil and Mobvoi for even that there is still a Wear OS for Google to build off of, is really on the strength of those two brands primarily.
Yeah.
So if we don't start seeing some kind of movement to rebuilding the old feeling of Android, be alike but not the same, or be together but not this. I forget what the ad campaign was,
Hmm.
but I want to see, now that a Qualcomm Google Watch has Assistant and Wear OS 4, why can't my Mobvoi? And it's not Mobvoi's fault. I'm
Nope.
not going to blame
It's using the
TicWatches
same
for Google's
W5 chip.
oversight.
Yeah, you're right. No, no, I absolutely. I think this should be a conversation now that a lot of the other manufacturers should be able to have and get a roadmap into Wear OS 4, or at least getting the same features that Google was referring to. Like I
Right.
think this watch it should be able to support, I think, Google Gmail now on the watch. I forgot that. I think they talked about a couple of new Google's
Well, and
apps
the
that were.
feature drop that I'm going to be really excited to see is call screening. But I'd
Oh,
love to see some more of those expanded assistant features come back, because I don't have any assistant on my Mobvoi now, all because Google is
well,
not
so okay,
supporting
so
their other partners.
I'll say this. My biggest surprise when I was working when I started to review the Xiaomi Watch Pro 2 was the fact that it was running Wear OS 3.5, but it also does include the Google Assistant in there.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow, Xiaomi was able to go through and get that at launch. It's not like an later on feature added. It is in here by pressing and holding on the
Sure.
crown. It does initiate the assistant, or I can even use my voice.
And I don't want to be the cynical dude, but follow the money.
No,
Samsung is the number one partner in
Mhm.
supplying Android devices to the ecosystem, and they were one of the top selling wearable companies out on the market.
Yeah,
Globally, who's right behind Samsung is Xiaomi.
exactly.
So, so again, I don't want to support an ecosystem where Google's saying, "Oh, but Fossil and Mobvoi, no, they don't get assistant, but we'll entice Xiaomi and Samsung so they play ball,
Mhm.
and we'll give them the assistant, even though functionally this is all similar hardware from the same component manufacturers with the same specs and capabilities and everything else."
Yeah,
That is
no,
not something I would want to support.
it's a
And
tougher conversation.
again, my decision is made much easier as soon as any fitness tracking style smartwatch, RTOS smartwatch, will give me speech to text. The second I get that, then there's really not much reason for me to stay with Wear OS anyway.
Still no update. Sorry. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm still trying to manually keep checking an update on that. But
I'm doing all of them here on my desk too.
he's like, okay. So I think that with that exception on there, the Pixel Watch 2 seems quite poised to have a lot more AI built into Fitbit. So there's a lot more improvements. And again, they're trying to get it to so that people can subscribe to their Fitbit service as well as the ability of getting
Hmm.
the hardware to read out the information. So at its core, this is really a Fitbit running Wear OS, and it is made by Google since Google acquired the company, and therefore they're, like you said, they're building in that synergy. A lot more. Um, yeah, I feel like I'll say one thing from an ecosystem centric point of view. When we talk about Samsung, obviously, where Samsung was copying Fitbit and trying to bring in all of their features in there, Google just skipped to the end of the story and just basically said, we'll just buy the company. But at least you having those ecosystem things, people that loved Fitbit will love what the Pixel Watch 2 is doing. And they will enjoy, if they love having the Wear OS functionality, the longer battery life, it seems. And honestly,
Hmm.
if I do get my hands on one of them, and I would definitely be wanting to test that out, because that was one of my biggest things. If you add LTE to it, your battery just dove
Yeah.
straight down even further, because anytime you are outside of that auto switching mode that it built into Wear OS, where it goes LTE, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, or sorry, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, LTE, and you jump over to the LTE modem, the it was literally like, it was very quick. The battery, you could see the percentage. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see. But that was, I think, the biggest thing for me that was exciting was the fact that we have battery life and more optimizations and more better heart rate sensors and better readout information as
Yeah,
well.
the new
ECG and all.
electrodermal sensor looks pretty interesting. I know Mobvoi has been doing sort of stress and exhaustion management
Yeah,
for a while, but seeing a new style of hardware-based sensor try and conceptualize that data, I think is going to be helpful for a lot of people. It's for me, it's not what's kind of sucking the wind out of my sails isn't anything specifically about this one individual product. It's more, again, as a corporate or executive decision, how the Wear OS platform has been managed. And I'm really tired of seeing the inconsistencies in how Alphabet has been sort of
yeah,
doling out support in certain directions, but not in others. And
yeah,
it's the thing that will make, in my opinion, this makes Wear OS a less safe buy for consumers, where they don't trust that they've got that parity of experience. They can't just take a watch to a different phone, or they can't pair a different phone with this watch that they already own. It makes it feel like now we're all trying to have individual ecosystems.
hmm,
And I don't want a Pixel ecosystem with poor interoperability with other gadgets. And I don't want a Samsung ecosystem where you don't get all the features unless you own everything Samsung. That's not what I want to see happen in Android land. But it's looking like that could be one path that we end up on if a couple companies find some financial success here. Like, let's say Xiaomi says, hey, we've got this watch, you're going to buy our phone. When they're together, that's peanut butter jelly time.
hmm,
And if you use our watch with a Vivo, then you don't get any of these features. And then that people get frustrated, so they only buy everything Xiaomi. Yeah, that worked, but now we're all annoyed. People, you're not encouraging your audience to really be involved in that. You're not getting them excited about that. We're just exhausted by it.
yeah. No, and I feel like Samsung's being part of the conversation as well around Wear OS. Is it 2 or 3? I forgot which one. No, it's 3. No, 2. Where a lot of the features were announced, and then shifted the conversation where we now need, like as you said, a companion app for every single manufacturer. We used to
Mm-hmm.
have the Wear app. The Wear app is dead. Now it basically is every company's own. On Xiaomi, it's the Mi Fitness. On Samsung,
Mm-hmm.
it's the Samsung Wear app. Um, it's becoming very, yeah, everybody's party at their own house kind of thing. But you got to play the game where you are. We'll end up having to basically see what end up going on with Mobvoi. I'm hoping now that with the announcement and launch of this watch, and the fact that now it is open in the ecosystem, that
Mm-hmm.
their progression into being able to reintroduce those features that they used to carry in earlier generations, and be able to actually get those functions working. I mean, again, the 5 Pro battery life may get a little bit of a hit when you add services back, like the assistant, but I think it depends on what you want to do. Realistically, I think it's a function. Like,
It's like
is
we
it
can
worth
take the hit because it's getting amazing battery life,
3+ days, buddy? 3+ days,
right?
man. Almost, yeah. No, I know. It's an easy weekend out of town, not having to worry about the battery kind of conversation, because even when it drops down to 10%, it drops into extended battery life mode, which
Yeah.
will last you another 5 days.
It
Like,
was
it's
cute.
seriously.
Ike was on earlier this evening, and he was like, "Yeah, I just turn off like the all day heart rate tracking, and I get 5 days on a charge." And you're like, "Yeah, I've got plenty of room to add assistant listening as a minor battery draw. Like, I'm good. I
No, no,
like this hardware.
I
I'm gonna
like
stick with this hardware."
no, I'm with you as well. I'm with you. But being that we are at that beautiful 1.5 hour thing, I feel like we need to talk a little bit
Hmm.
more about something that you and I have discussed as well. So we hinted at it at the beginning. Obviously, Android 14 is coming out, it dropping
Hmm.
to many, many devices except for the 7 Pro for some reason. I'm sure we'll get it eventually. It's not
And just
here
hilarious
always
is like both. I bet you like every other 7 Pro is fine. It's just ours.
it's
You're like,
just
screw those
ours.
guys.
Yeah, we're on some kind of list of something like put them last. That TK1 guy, last one. Yeah, I want the people in Japan to get their update first, and
Yeah.
then we'll put Juan and
Someone who
TK.
bought the phone gray market in Australia, then TK and
Then
Juan.
TK1, exactly. But I'm glad. I'll say this: I'm glad they put us in the right order. TK then Juan, so at least I'm not the last
Oh,
in that
I was
conversation.
just making us a package deal, but you're
I will
probably
no,
right. We're
no, it's a ditch. We're in it, but
staggered OS releases
I
between the
mean,
two of us.
don't get me wrong. If you are obviously wanting to upgrade, it is a simple, easy solution. You can go to the Android website, download, and you can actually use the online flashing tool that actually will install the update for you.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it does not do it without wiping your phone. That is the only downside to that.
So my previous beta test phone was the Pixel 6a,
Yeah.
and this morning nuked it, wiped it, running Android 14, got it all set back up
Yeah. I know.
again. Super easy.
Oh
So
no, absolutely.
don't be afraid to.
I'll say that if we reset our 7 Pro, it will get the update faster.
There's just so much on there that I want to keep. I like the
That's
way
the
that it's
thing.
set up. I'm
No,
just being lazy.
I'm with you. I'm with you. Hence why I'm waiting patiently, very, very patiently. Um, but yeah, so you received the update on the Pixel Fold, though. That was something that
Hmm.
I was like, I'm kind of excited to hear about that. So you were put you're I think I saw something on the Patreon. Am I right, or did I misunderstand, or even saw it on Twitter as well? You posted the content is already available for everybody to be able to check out
Yeah. So
long term.
Pixel Fold, I've been running the Android 14 betas
Yeah.
on the Pixel Fold, and the QPR2 is literally installing on this phone right now, like while we speak. So I can't comment too much about the newest Android 14 beta. But what I finally posted, and I just thought it would be kind of a fun little bit of timing, now that we're all talking about Pixel 8, was to finally sum up some long-term thoughts on Pixel Fold.
Hmm.
So this is like 3 months after the launch of the phone. I've been running it on Android 14 since we first started getting the beta, so it's not really a fair real world review. Like, I pride
Hmm.
myself on trying to do like, what would you really be experiencing if you used this phone the way that you bought it. So it is on beta software for most of my time with it, but it has been interesting kind of seeing the evolution of Google's uh, uh, upgrade process this year. It's been
Okay.
a little bit different in how we've been getting those beta updates, and how Android 14 got a little delayed from what we used to expect in previous years. But it's
That's
about
true, actually.
4,500
Yeah,
years.
we typically used to get it about a month or so before, actually.
Yeah.
Right? Last year
So
they released
again,
it before. Yeah.
it's just been an interesting insight. So, and the Fold has been an amazing product to kind of use as the platform to test
Yeah.
that, because
Hmm.
you're sort of testing the phone and the tablet version of this operating system philosophy in one device. And so I wrote 4,500 words, just long-term review, and then also sharing just some of my personal experiences having taken this phone out on a couple trips, on a
Hmm.
road trip through the Southwest. It was terrifying using this in rural New Mexico in rocky, sandy, dirty, dusty climates. And then also just kind of wrapping up, like I said, I never put out like the first week review. This is really the lived-in experience of how long it took me to get up to speed, how long it took me to start trusting the device, and then also some of those concerns that I still feel are applicable. Like, where do folding tablets fit in this market right now when for the price of a Pixel Fold, you could get at full MSRP a base model Pixel 8 Pro, a Pixel tablet, and a Pixel Watch 2, and you'd only be paying about $50 more. So we have to have a very frank and a very critical conversation on the current way that we position and we communicate the strengths and weaknesses of foldables. Like the flip style phones, I think make a lot of sense and they're a lot more familiar. The mini tablets that turn into chunky phones, that is still a really precious conversation when we're really looking at bang for buck.
Yeah.
And so that's 4,500 words. It takes me a while to kind of get through that kind of concept and to sort of arrive at a conclusion that I feel is reasonable. But this is still, we're in the Wild West. I know Samsung has been doing foldables for 5 years now. I think we're just starting the process of getting into foldy bendy hinged phones. Like this is still exceedingly unfamiliar for most consumers out there.
The big thing for me this year, at least, I'm really happy to see more competition in the realm. Not
Oh
not
yeah.
necessarily saying that we're out of the experimental part of it. Seeing Moto jumping
No,
into the flip side,
just the
seeing
competition
Google
is
going
like
into the
the
fold
first
side.
steps into the
Oh no, absolutely,
experimentation.
exactly.
Like
But it's the I feel like it's going to be the catalyst as to how we see maybe a either unification of approach to a specific set of hardware, but also the advancement of some of the things that we want to be able to get better out of durability, repairability,
mhm.
functional, even just make could even drive down the price. We don't realistically know exactly how things are going to approach because the fold is considerably different than what Samsung's putting out as a fold. The Pixel Fold and
Yeah.
and Samsung's Z Fold 5 are not the same. When we look at what Oppo was doing with the N2 last year, very different, slightly smaller experience even than the Fold, than the Pixel Fold. Because when I got a chance to get my hands on that device at the beginning at launch, I took with me my N2 and I'm like, oh wait, this is a little bit bigger and wider. I'm like, okay, I get it, I understand. And then we also still haven't seen OnePlus other than the massively leaked and superposed video that was done by
Yeah.
the Indian actress. So the reality is we are in a very exciting time when it comes to foldables, but it is still the beginning of conversation. So for that part, I'm glad that you were able to put that out. I think when we were setting up the chat, sorry, the topics for the night, I saw your tweet. As I was reading your tweet, your message right above said, the
Yeah, we can talk
topics
about that.
we could talk about that. I'm like, I was literally just going about it.
But
I was
it's interesting again. Samsung's done 5 generations of Z Folds, and I'll still
like, yeah,
take this Pixel Fold out, and people have never seen anything like it. And you're like, our expectation. Those of us who are techies, and you're in this chat, you're watching this live stream. Hey, everybody.
absolutely.
Um, please be aware that like you are so much more informed on these kinds of trends where I could open this up against most of the parents at my daughter's school, and it would be the first time they've ever seen anything like that.
Yeah, no, I remember somebody one time saw
It is
one of my
crazy unfamiliar.
the small clamshell style phones. I think I forgot which one it was, and the first response was, "What is that phone?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
it's a flipping phone," and it's like, "Does it run iOS?"
yeah.
And I was like, no, not everything
No,
runs iOS. It does run.
it
It
doesn't.
runs Android, and then you could see him just step back a little bit, like, oh, so
Hmm.
Apple has not invented
It's like
this yet.
I told that story of like we were just starting to visit some family at the peak of COVID, and
Yeah,
I showed my cousin the Duo One, and he had a couple friends. Like we were all sitting outside. He had a couple friends over, and like that phone got passed around, and they had never like the idea of something like that was blowing their minds. And there have been so few opportunities for people to sort of really see this thing happen, not locked to a weird desk display at their carrier store,
yeah.
but to see one function out in the wild. And so like my daughter's out at a little soccer camp and I'm showing the parents like, oh yeah, you open it up and I can take this photo and look, I can flip it around and use the good camera with the front screen. We can do this, we can do that. And like, I'm I'm speaking a completely different language. And this isn't like an iPhone owner versus an Android phone Android owner thing. Like some of these people have Samsung, some of these people have Pixels, some of these people have iPhones. Like this is crazy unfamiliar. But I did actually see a Z Fold out in the wild on one of the park rangers who's
Oh,
out on like the horse trails and stuff. He's
yeah.
like riding around in like this beat up old pickup truck, gets out, he's checking some things, pulls out his phone. He's got, I think it's a Z Fold 4. The case
I've
on it looks
seen
like a Z Fold 4.
every once in a while. I probably would see
But
a
I was
Z
just
Fold, and I
impressed
think,
because he's the outdoorsy guy,
and he's out there
right?
with a foldable
Yeah,
phone.
he's out in the hills, and you're like, okay, he's put some faith. And he had the big chunky armor case that had
Oh
that
yeah,
fold
yeah,
out.
no,
Yeah,
absolutely. When I went to Korea for the Z Fold 5 launch, I made sure I was running the most rugged case. I was carrying internationally, bumping, running, doing everything. I did not want to risk the device, and I think the overall, I think it is something you need to, like you said. I think you kind of said it right. You need to learn to trust it
yeah.
because we are very confident in this form factor. This is a
Hmm.
very confident form. We know this. We've lived with this for like
We have
we've had
reasonable
it,
expectations on what they should be able to
and
handle.
what it should be able to handle in case you drop it or in case you get some water on it. Foldables are not there, and I think this is something that we still need to kind of figure out, especially as we see companies like oh my god, not Infinix, the other brand. I forgot the name of it. They just released a foldable, a flip phone
Techno.
for like Techno. Thank you. Techno just released a budget version of their flip phone,
Hmm.
like a clamshell style. So we're starting to see manufacturers try to bring in the price point down. You know,
And I
I'm
just
still
like
waiting for Moto's what's it called,
the,
7 Gen 1
the
version.
cheap razor, the
Yeah, yeah.
cheaper. I shouldn't say the cheap razor.
It's not the cheaper,
Um,
it's just the
yeah,
razor.
the less expensive razor. But I mean, think about because all of us in this chat, we know people that have absolutely busted phone screens,
Oh, dude,
right?
we travel, we see that
All of
all the
us know
time.
that.
Yeah, yeah, they carry their phones and they're not even worried
Yeah,
about. They're not changing it. Yeah.
that can't happen in a foldable. It can't. So we have to teach and inform and expose people to these types of devices in a way where the consideration of how they handle their phones
Yeah.
has to be completely different than how they handled their phone with a busted screen.
Yeah.
Because that's you can't just slap a piece of packing tape on the front of it and hope the glass shards don't cut through. It is a non-functional device
You can't just spray
if these
Windex
things
on it
take
and
off.
just buff it out. It'll buff out. Come on, it's the Greek style.
Just rub
Windex.
some blue on it. It's great.
Yeah. Blue screen, isn't it? Isn't that what the filter's for? No, I'm with you.
So
Yeah.
we've got a lot to see as like devices start shipping out. I don't know. Did you order any of the Pixels? Are you waiting?
I'm hopeful. I'm not gonna deny the fact that I did put in a pre-order, just
Nice.
because I I'm hedging my bets. Let's say that I'm just trying to be safe that I'll have something to talk about at the time of launch. Um,
Mm-hmm.
as I noticed as I kept going back to the site and trying to look around, now ship dates
Sure.
are later and the hardware is they're doing what they were expected. You know, devices
Yeah.
were going to start shipping, and during the keynote, actually surprisingly, they actually turned on the pre-order in the middle of the keynote
Mm-hmm.
before telling everybody it was ready to pre-order. So there's very few people that maybe even have noticed it unless they were watching it on their site. But long story short, yeah. So at this point, yeah, essentially the 8 Pro, and of course there's the watch there. So we'll definitely get a chance to maybe talk about that a little bit.
So
Yeah.
Marie and I are checking it out because unfortunately, since we're not getting the Xperia 5 Mark V here in the United States,
Yeah, and the 5
she
Mark 5.
wants a smaller phone. She was only test driving my 1 Mark IV to see if
Hmm.
she liked Sony's. And she thought the phone was great. She just thinks it's too big.
Yeah.
She wanted the smaller one. So we might move over, just like give up. Like if Sony's not going to send us the phone with a headphone jack and a memory card slot, she still wants more support than what we would probably get out of a Zen phone. She's probably going to
Probably
get a
gonna go
Pixel
for a
8. So we're
Pixel.
going to talk
Yeah.
about it over the weekend and see. But instead of going 8 Pro for the phone that we buy, we might get the 8. I'll spend a little time just kind of poking around and reviewing it, and then that'll be her daily
Oh yeah,
driver.
of
She just
course.
owns it, and everything's good. So we'll probably make that conversation. We'll probably make that decision in the next couple days. What's coming to the channel, man? You got anything coming out tomorrow, over the
I
weekend? What's
I'll
going
say
on?
this. This is going to be the slow week for me. Last week was a lot of travel, a lot of content. I pushed out like 4 videos, technically 3 of them the English and then the Arabic channel. I will say this. I promise you a very busy week next week. This week is a little bit of kind of catching my breath a little bit. I pushed out the video on the Xperia 1 Mark V with the video editor application, that the video creator app that they have in there. And I think I may, if I have a video that's ready to go, I'm just waiting for it to approve. If that approves within the next day or so, then that will be my second video for the week. Otherwise, I'm seriously, yeah, there's some good stuff coming up that I'm excited to be able to share. I'll say that there's some really good, exciting things that I've been working on. So I'll say that. So yeah,
Nice.
for me, it may
That's
just, yeah,
good.
it may just be like one video. If I'm lucky, maybe a second one. But I mean, what's coming up on your side?
So I still need to finish up. I've got that TCL video almost done.
Okay.
It's I got burned by the resolve bug on 18.6 DaVinci Resolve. There's a bug where if you ripple edit, so when you cut something out and it
Uh huh.
stitches all the video pieces back together, it offsets the time of your ripple edit for every clip after, and you can't undo to recover. So you have
Ooh,
to manually go back and retime every edit, every cut.
I haven't noticed that.
So
Okay.
it's not
It's on
hitting
18.6.
everybody. And I
Okay.
think one of the consistent things might be if you're running an AMD chipset. So I reached out to the folks at DaVinci, Blackmagic, and DaVinci Resolve team, and they're like, yes, we're aware of this problem. Please roll back to DaVinci 18.5.1, and we'll have a fix someday soon. But
It doesn't
that
seem to
borked
affect.
my
Yeah, it doesn't
TCL
affect the
video.
Mac. I'll say that. Yeah, it doesn't impact on the Mac because I've
Yeah,
edited on
oh,
that.
you're so fancy. You have a MacBook. Oh my gosh.
Sorry.
You're
Yeah.
just so much better than everybody else.
No, no. The reason I'm
So
mentioning it because I have my PC running
that
AMD that
slowed
I had
down
18.6.
my
Yeah.
TCL video. I am hoping that maybe next week I'll be able to put it all back together again. Because it also took me 2 tries to figure out what was going on. So
Oh,
I would
okay.
like edit out the timeline, then I'd be putting in clips and like, oh, I just want to retime this little thing. Let me just cut this out. Now the whole rest of my video is broken. What just happened? So that slowed me way down. That's one of the reasons why on the website this week I did a write-up for my
Hmm.
reactions to the Pixel event, where I also took a little time to try and discuss what should happen next. So
Hmm.
we learned a bit this about the watch, what should happen next with Wear OS. We learned this about the earbuds, what should happen next with audio. We learned this about the phones, where should Google go from here. So I wrote that up instead of making it more of a reaction video. I did 4,500 words on the Pixel Fold. That's on
Yeah.
somegadgetguy.com. And I am going to be putting together. This is just teases. Like I'm only just starting to dig into this. But Geekom has a new revision on their mini AMD box. So
Oh,
this is
nice.
an AMD 5800U.
Hmm.
This is a redonkulously powerful little tiny PC. I've only turned it on to set it up. It's pretty loud for all the tiny fans that
Oh,
move
nice.
air through this
Okay.
little mini chassis.
Fanless no
Um,
more. But yes.
no, you can't go fanless with the 5800U, but it's a screamer compared to some of those like low cost Intel boxes that you and I have both been playing with.
Hmm.
And then I'm also working with the folks again at Vivo,
Nice.
and I'm a little anxious because they sent out a pair of phones a couple months ago. So
Hmm.
these are the V27s, the V27 and V27 Pro.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And they've also just sent out the V29. So if I like move all these around and like shuffle them,
What happened to
do
the
you think
V28?
anyone would know like which one is the V27 or the V29 and which one has a MediaTek versus a Snapdragon 700, or is it a 2 megapixel low light sensor or a 2 megapixel
Depth
depth
sensor.
camera or a macro camera? Like I
I
feel
can't.
too many phones. Like I don't know that this needed to be two whole separate.
Google heard me. I pushed a button by mistake, and it's explaining to me what a depth sensor is. I'm sorry. Yes.
That's
Uh,
awesome.
just in case you
So
were wondering what it was.
I was planning on doing that follow up. I mentioned this a couple weeks back, saying like, "Hey, I still have these V27s. These are great little mid ranger phones." And now I'm kind of just going to be moving right along to talk about the V29. And functionally, it's very similar. So if you've got the V27, a lot of what I'm going to talk about is probably still going to be applicable because the phones haven't changed that dramatically from the 27 to the 29.
The
So
29 seems to be
I've
more
got
of a shift in
a
SoC
number of things like
architecture.
that kind of coming through,
Okay.
and it should be fun. And I should have like a little accessory video, just something that was fun that I can't really hold up right now on camera, but just something going on over the weekend that not major, but it's just I think it's kind of neat. So I think other people might like it too.
That's nice. And then, of course, leading it up to another SCGQA on Monday morning with you guys. For everybody that's watching, of course, and if you're listening to the audio podcast, it's on Monday morning, 9 a.m. over on. It's actually on this channel as well. If you're watching it on, if you follow us on
Yep.
YouTube, of course. So you basically just ends up being the SCGQA part of the show. The audio version of our podcast will also be hopefully coming up within the next day or so. Please make sure to follow that. If you weren't able to catch the show, definitely give us a follow and a listen there. Actually, we are available on YouTube Music now because that is a synergy thing apparently that they turned on that switch. But with that being said, it's a very busy week. Last week
Yeah.
was we couldn't have a show, but I promise that within the next couple of weeks we're going to have a lot of good engaging conversations and perspectives on different hardware. Obviously, if we're able, when we get our devices on the Pixels, we'll also have a little bit more to participate and of course provide more hands-on experience. Obviously, we don't have a Google store in the in Los Angeles. It's all the way in Cupertino, so unless we want to, Juan, idea, if you ever want to try to do it, if you want to do a weekend drive, just quick 5.5 hours in 5.5 hours. It's super easy.
Sure.
Um, we'll be able to talk a little bit more about that stuff, and I'm sure there's things that Wanda's working on and stuff that I'm working on as
Mm-hmm.
well. But be safe, stay safe. Thank you very much for hanging out with us. For everybody on the show, if you're not subscribed, make sure you hit that like and subscribe. Make sure it gives us some attention, but it also makes sure that you're always tuned in to whenever we have new episodes, either audio or video. So, with that being said, thank you very much. We will see you next week for another episode.
Oh.